Hey, 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 I'm live in the Glennon Doyle studios. Boo, 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 boo. We're doing easy things today, everybody. We're not doing hard things. We're doing soft, supple things today. Okay. Let me address some life-changing shiz right off the top.
They're going to be dropping some really powerful, amazing, life-changing shiz.
That's the promise of this show. But I do want to address a couple things personally, not going on, but that are on my mind at the top, and then we can continue. If you were aware, I posted about this potential topic idea, and I asked, like, is this a good idea? And I was really asking more so about the time, because I was like, is it good to do it at 8 p.m. on Tuesday? Is that okay with everybody? But I think most people thought I was asking about Glennon, like, is this a good person or a bad person? And there were some mixed comments in the discussion on the community tab, and it brought up some insecurities within myself. I'm not gonna lie. That insecurity being, have I created a space that is so full of vitriol and hate that people don't think I can give a fair, unbiased take on somebody? And I really hope that I haven't done that. I was very surprised to see the comments, and people were saying, like, I don't cover her. Don't do it. I'm like, what do you think I'm going to do? Like, rip her in half? Like, I don't know. I feel like, I guess it's my own fault, because everyone I put on my channel usually is like someone I've disliked. But now I feel like as I've gotten wiser and older and more mature in the last 2 years, no, not really, but I want to expand out. I don't want to only, I know, choose sadness, girl here. I don't want to only cover people I absolutely despise and hate. Yes, that will still happen. And I don't despise and hate anyone as a person. I can be very annoyed by their content, about their messaging. But I hope that changes in the future, and I'm going to work on it, that I can cover people who I may agree with some things, may disagree with some things, but they don't have to be black or white, good or bad, like one side of the spectrum or the other. Like, I say a lot that things are nuanced, but I wonder if my content covering has been so unnuanced because of my Rachel Hollis, Dave Hollis, Heidi Powell content. I mean, I have a pretty defined opinion on their shenanigans. So in the future, I hope that you'll give me a second chance to expand my own horizons and be able to give people a fair shake in the spotlight. Now, if I end up going back to, at some point, medical scams and people like that, I don't know if I'm going to be, like super flowery with them. But for these gurus and stuff, I think it's worthwhile. And I hope that you have an open mind when it comes to these topics, because I don't have a huge opinion of Glennon Doyle yet. I have some things that like today I was driving from like an hour away, so I listened to a podcast, and I have some opinions, but nothing that I can't be swayed on, and nothing that I think is like, oh my God, this is crazy. And, maybe that's okay sometimes. But I don't think you should be afraid. That's the thing. That's the part that I'm upset about, is that people were like, I can't watch it because I like her. Like, I think we should all be willing to look at something and go, oh, this person doesn't align with this. Oh, okay. But I really like her. And that's okay. You're accepted in my book. You don't have to cancel yourself and not attend, because I promise I won't rip her apart unless she does something crazy, and then all bets are off. But that's what I wanted to say off the top. I hope I can open it up a little bit and bring some nuance to the conversation. So on that note,
There's a first for everything.
Thank you, Heidi. And the whole reason that Glennon and here's my understanding. Here's where I'm coming from. Okay, on Glennon, I read Untamed, or I listened to it on Audible. Probably, God, like in the beginning of the pandemic. But I consider that part of my life before I had my oh shit, all of this is bullshit. Not necessarily her specifically, but self-help a lot, almost all of it, in my opinion, the industry at least. The Tony Robbins, the Gary V's. I really, really started to open my eyes as I started therapy and my journey through therapy. So I listened to it. I didn't really have a huge memory of like, my life was changed by the book, but I didn't hate it necessarily either. But really at that time, I wasn't hating on anything self-help. So I did listen to that book. I never followed her on any social media afterwards. And that was basically my experience. So I do have a little bit more knowledge now because I did some research. But I still have a completely, basically neutral understanding, but also, self-help. There's been some debate in those same comments that I was talking about, whether Glennon is a self-help person or if she's just a writer. And I don't know, and maybe we'll discover it throughout this video, but I think, at least in Untamed, her third out of 3 books, her most recent and third book, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's like Untamed, a guide for women, or like something like how to do this and this. So when it comes to that, I tend to think, yeah, that is self-help. If you're just writing an autobiography or a memoir, about your life, that's one thing. But then when it becomes a woman's guide to life or whatever, then I think it's fair to say, okay, that sounds like self-help to me, personally. So we're going to watch some interviews that she's done. Okay. Second thing. The reason why she came up on my radar again is because she had this sort of like, not cryptic, it was very clear, I guess, but you don't know who it was. But basically she put up this podcast episode and said that there was a person with a husband who, wow. There was a person with a husband that was supposed to be a guest, and the husband was rude to a staff member of Glennon. And so they decided to cancel the interview. And then they did a podcast about why they canceled the interview. And so people were speculating, like, who was it? And a lot of people thought, including myself, but now I don't know, because I don't know. Some people thought it was Mel Robbins. Then I thought maybe it was Gabby Bernstein, but I don't really know. I'm not sure. But that's why she's been in sort of, if you've heard of Glennon Doyle recently, that's probably the article that you heard about. So we'll talk about that maybe if, towards the middle, we can listen to that episode. It's sort of vague because we don't know who the person is. It's like this guest that we were very excited about that has a husband who is aggressive. And there's been some speculation as to who it is. I'm sort of interested to find out and read some theory. So, we'll get through like the basics of Glennon and some of my thoughts on her and where she's coming from, some of my concerns and some things I like. And then we'll go to the who the guest could be. So thank you for joining me. And then if you don't know, oops, I'm all mirrored. This is Glennon and this is her wife, Abby. Okay, so those are the stars of this show today. And I'm seeing your comments. Thank you for being here. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I just want to say that
He's always in the bathroom.
He's always in the bathroom. And if you're here from Hollisville, let me know in the chat whether you think, number one, Heidi and Dave are still together. And number two, if Heidi and Dave are physically together right now in Utah, or if the relationship's over. Okay, that's my little tie. Oh, and we're also going to talk about how there's some speculation as to whether Rachel Hollis, of course I have to connect it to Rachel because I've moved on from Rachel in some ways, but not all.
I'm a big time hippie and I'm very woo woo.
Yes, me too, Rach. And there's a video actually from a creator that contacted me like probably a year ago now and asked if she could use some of my footage from a video that I did like a year ago. And I was like, yeah, sure, take it, whatever. And she did a whole comparison video about why she thinks that Rachel Hollis is stealing or basically mimicking Glennon, and she lays out some proof as to why, like, on this date Rachel posted about the book Untamed, and then on this date she starts talking about a concept that was in the book and not attributing it to her. So of course and I see your comments. I think they're on a friendship break, is my opinion, by the way. I think they might get back together, but they're taking a little break for their mental health, which, good for you guys, right? Good for you. Okay, anyways, so for now, who the heck is Glennon Doyle? Not to be confused with Crabbe and Goyle from Harry Potter. Hold on. Everyone's laughing at home, right? Everyone's laughing hysterically. Oh. Anyways. Okay, so she has 2 million followers. According to her bio, she's the author of Untamed and Love Warrior, host of We Can Do Hard Things podcast, and the founder of Together Rising, which is a nonprofit. I took a look at the nonprofit paperwork, like the financials of last year. It seems legit. It does not seem like a Bethany Frankel situation. So, and that's a whole other story we'll get into at some other point. But she has paperwork. It looks like her claims of, raising $25 million is correct. It looks like they might be investing some of the money that they collect or her donations into like a fund, which is not super unheard of. And I could be wrong. I just looked at the paperwork and there was like a section that was like securities and investments. And there was a thing, like a line there with some money in it. But it was not the whole $25 million. So I tend to believe that she's being honest about her claims of the amount of money that she's raised for, it's like women and children going through hard situations. So I'm a fairly, trusting supporter of that cause. Thank you to Chels Marie. Chels Marie picked a red box of popcorn. Yeah, we're going to get into it, okay?
Oh, okay. Cult.
The Cult of Glennon Doyle. And for that, I will say...
You're not freaking fine.
You're not freaking fine. And...
This girl a mess, y'all.
We don't know if she's a mess, y'all, yet. Okay, so... I don't know if it's just me, but We Can Do Hard Things was like constantly every place that I went on Facebook during the pandemic. Like, everybody apparently has taken that phrase and utilized it at some point. I feel like, at least in my hometown and like former high school friends, like, we can do hard things. We can do hard things. I've heard it a lot. Apparently that started with Glennon Doyle around the time of the pandemic. So just on first glance, I saw a couple of kids way down, but if I was to look at this and make a quick judgment, I would say I'm satisfied with this. Now, I'm not listening to the videos, but I don't see children. I don't see, toxic diet culture shakes. I don't see selling of products. I don't see anything openly egregious, like, oh my God, like, what is she doing? This is so bad. I don't see, too many ads for things. It looks like they're taking content and she's putting it up on her Instagram. So, I'm scrolling down quite a bit and it looks like they're staying on task. She's not doing a whole lot of things. I'm like, damn, like, this is horrible. So I'll give her a point right off the bat for, at least unproblematic Instagram posting. So already she's better than Dave and Heidi and Rachel, honestly. Okay. Yeah. And I will say diversity wise, that's a good point. It could be better. Yeah. A lot of white people. And there's some women of color in here. It's going to be women. That's primarily her target audience. Her, big demo tends to be women. So I don't think we're going to see many men. Well, there's one. And I don't really have a problem with that necessarily. I sort of have a problem with content, or especially events, more so in-person events or even virtual events, where it's women only, women first, this is a women's event, and then they have like 10 speakers and 7 of them are men. That bothers me. Even when it's a few men, I tend to get annoyed because, and maybe that's not fair, but I feel like a men's event, they're only going to have men and maybe one woman to like tell them about sex or something, or about like, you know, how to win women, because I've seen these like alpha male bro events and they have no problem sticking to men only. But women, I tend to see, you know, a mix, and maybe that's better, but I just think if you're offering the tickets for women only, you know, the audience is women only, but then men are there to teach you, I tend to go, I think there's always positions for women, you know, women speakers. There's a million of them. There's women videographers. There's women, you know, DJs, like I said in the Rachel Hollis case. So I sort of get annoyed by that, or a little, you know, like, come on, this is a women's empowerment event. Let's show it and tell it. But yeah, I mean, diversity could be better, but Glennon sort of is acknowledging, or she, from what I understand, knows that she's sort of like the white woman, and she knows she's a white woman, but she's sort of like the white woman leader, or one of the many. And I think that's sort of like her thing. So it seems, in a way, like she doesn't mind being the voice and the I don't know, like the inspiration for white women. So maybe she's trying to, you know, get those people. So let's read a little bit about her bio. And here's where it starts to get a little interesting. Where is it? Well, like 1,000 links. So she was born in 1976, which makes her, hold on. Her wife is 42, and Glennon is 46. So actually, I thought they were a bigger time gap or a bigger age gap, and I'm actually surprised. They're only a couple years apart. Okay, so she is 46, and she wrote 3 books. They're all bestsellers on New York Times. And she started as a mommy blogger. That may or may not be surprising. That seems to be the beginning, and a Christian mommy blogger at that. She started a blog called Momastery, like mastery with the word mom on it. I mean, that's fine, I guess. But she wrote blog posts very similar, I guess, to Rachel Hollis, in the sense of, you know, it was aimed at women. It was about parenting as a Christian, and, you know, not fully maybe embracing the old school Christianity, sort of bringing new light to an old school way of thinking. So that's where her first book, that's where like the inspiration for the first book came. Then she writes a second book so she has Carry On Warrior, which I believe is the first book that came out, Love Warrior, which was next, and then Untamed. Now, here's my sort of red flag. And I didn't read the first 2, so it could be a green flag, it could be nothing. But her last one, her last most recent book, is about her coming out, sort of. It's more about her and her wife, because she sort of obviously took a non-traditional way of joining the LGBTQ plus community. She was married with children to a man. And in the second book, so this is my not have read the book understanding, just reading and listening to different interviews today. Her second book was all about her finding out her husband cheated on her. I don't know, by several women or like multiple, I believe. And he came clean to her. And the second book was about her deciding to stay with him despite the infidelity. And they were working through things, and they were trying to figure it out. And then while she was on her book tour to promote that book, she met, she met her wife. I keep saying her wife, Abby. Yes, Abby. So interesting. Promoting the book about this is how I saved my marriage. Met this woman, and again, so that's not really like, oh my God, how dare you, divorce, like get divorced, whatever, I don't care. But it's interesting that she met this woman, and then the story of how they met and how they fell in love, to me, sounds sort of magical thinking, not super realistic, and maybe there's more to it, but the way she describes their meeting, and we can play a clip about it, it's like, I saw her, this is from Glennon's perspective, I saw her and I just knew that was her, there she is, the love of my life, I love her, and like, okay, I guess miracles do happen, but I just find that explanation of how you met your wife, and like the way they met, and like it was just instant connection, they love each other. Several months later, they're both away from their partners and getting married to each other. I'm not saying that they can't have their story, but I find it as like really applicable advice, or applicable to like, oh, you'll know who you're supposed to marry because you'll be married already with kids, and then you'll be at an event promoting a book about that, and then you'll see them from across the room and you'll just know. It's like, I don't know. Whatever, but it just seems a little far-fetched, and a little bit of like, we're the only love story that really does it like this. Like, most people have to meet each other, date, take some time apart from their previous relationship, find themselves, but these two have done it sort of differently. Like I said, I don't really truly believe in soulmates. I don't know if I've ever said that, but I don't know if I really believe in that, at least in my own life. Like, I think there's been a lot of gray areas where like, yeah, relationships could have worked, some couldn't have. For various reasons, but I don't think like I lost my soulmate and now I have to, go and marry someone else that I'm not going to love. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I've just never really thought, I used to when I was younger, more mature. I'm like, oh, I'll just know. I'll just walk into the room and Ludacris will be playing our song, and I'll just look over and it'll be like, wow, move, get out the way, and we'll just hold hands forever. So yeah, and I think in the book she describes it, and maybe I can find the excerpt of the actual telling of it. Let's see. Describes meeting. I remember it being sort of like, yeah, right, or okay, this is not how it really happens in real life, but I could be wrong. Okay, here is a telling of it. Okay. So Glennon says, I was in Chicago about to launch my book, Love Warrior. Okay, that's the one about making the marriage work despite his infidelity. And I need to look into, we can look at his info. He has an Instagram and stuff. And he's actually the ex-husband. The story that they've told, which is sort of similar to how Heidi Powell used to talk about her first husband when she was with her second husband, Chris Powell. And I don't know if you were here a couple streams ago, we watched a video about Heidi being on like Good Morning America, for God's sakes. And they were like praising her and her blended family because her ex-husband and her current husband got along. So that was breaking news back then. And so this is sort of a similar story in the sense of like, Glennon talks very well about her ex-husband and says their marriage was a complete success, even though it ended with her marrying someone else. He appears in some content, social media content, and the wife, Abby, has said, he has been gracious with everything changing and has allowed the kids to love her, and that they're very grateful. So it seems like a healthy relationship. Now, the speed in which they met and got together and all that, it seems fast to me. But as long as he's okay with it, and they also have 3 children, which I think that could be pretty confusing to a kid. to a kid or to two kids. I think they have 2 or 3. That's a lot to take in a year. Hey, mom and dad, we live in Florida. And then like within a year, oh, mom now is married to a woman and dad is somewhere else. And now we're moving to this house. And now this woman's moving in, that's a lot. I would say. I think I would struggle to be sort of like, you'd have to kind of catch up. And maybe they're so like developed and like they're so stable that it's not that big of a deal. But like I said, I struggled with my mom getting a boyfriend. So, I think that's a lot to ask. But, whatever. They seemed happy. So what do I know? Okay, so Glenn says, I was in Chicago about to launch my book, Love Warrior, about my first marriage recovering from infidelity. The tagline of the book was an epic marriage redemption story. So almost, and I hate to continue to compare, but like, it sort of reminds me of Girl Wash Your Face in the sense of the story there was like Dave Hollis and I went through hell, whatever. Like he ignored me. He did this. He left me. He called me a booty call. He was much older than me, blah, blah, blah. But then it ended up that they fell in love and he changed and now they have 3 kids and it's a happily ever after story. Then by book 3, even though it's not about the divorce fully, it's about more so COVID and like Rachel's brother dying. Rachel still promotes the first book as if it's still relevant. Like, oh, Girl Wash Your Face, such a great book still. But if you read the third one, it has nothing to do, like a lot of the values that she had in book 1, she doesn't have in book 3. And I feel maybe this is the same way with Glennon. Like book 2, I'm assuming tells a pretty strong story of, if the tagline is an epic marriage redemption story, by book 3, she's divorced from him and moved on. I think I would stop promoting the second book, but she sort of still promotes that book in addition to Untamed. Sort of surprising, but again, I haven't read it, so I can't say like whether it's completely, a totally different story. Okay, and I was sitting around a table with a bunch of other writers who are also launching books because it was this big event for a bunch of writers who are putting out memoirs in the fall. And then there was this weird moment. All of us talking at the table stopped and everyone looked at the door. So I looked over at the door and there was this human. Well, hold on. This human. Standing in the doorway. And she was like 12,000 feet tall. And she was wearing this little dark gray trench coat and this red blood scarf. And she had this platinum crazy hair shaved on the side. And she was like a guy and a girl. Okay. And like beyond and in between, like I know I've never seen anything like this. And it wasn't just me. All of the writers were just staring at her because it was like the Mockingjay had arrived at our nerdy book party. We were just like, this person is too cool to be in this room with us, but everyone else handled their shit a little better than I did. This is what happened next, which has become family folklore, but there's no awkward situation that I can't make more awkward. It's my spiritual power. So if you can imagine like this big table with all these writers, and then it was the weirdest moment of my life. Just everything in me was like, there she is. Like just an absolute and total recognizing, even though I've never seen her before. But it was not a meeting, it was a recognizing. And then suddenly I come to consciousness and I'm standing up like this at the table with my arms thrown open towards the door. And then I notice that everyone at the table is staring at me and I have to figure out how to get from this position back to my chair. So what I decided to do is just bow deeply and just hope that everyone thought, well, this is just her weird writer's thing. She just bows when people walk in the door. So I bowed and then just sat down. Okay. And then Abby says, so from my perspective, I walk in, I'm a little bit late, which is very uncommon. I hate being late for stuff. I notice everybody's there and I look up and this weird woman is standing there, arms stretched out. And so because of her awkwardness, I now have to find my way around the whole table because nobody else stood up, just Glennon. And this is not like a huge room by any means. There's not like tons of space in the back of chairs, so I got to sidestep my way around the table, and I finally get to Glennon and say hello. And then I sat down in my seat, and we weren't seated next to each other, but I just remember being like, that was very, very interesting, odd even. I was next to this children's book writer feeling like, well, I want to sit next to her, Glennon, for some reason. Why do I want to sit next to her? This is weird. And then after dinner, we had to walk to the stage where the actual event was taking place. And in the literally 3 minutes it took us to get us back to the back room dinner table to the stage, I told Glenn my whole story and she touched my arm. And for sure, that was like a lightning bolt for me. That shocked me. I wasn't consciously aware of it. I think my heart and my soul knew way, way sooner than my brain. And then I heard her speak and she made me laugh and cry and laugh again and cry again. I'm hearing her talk so truthfully about her former marriage, her book, Love Warrior, and addiction. Okay. At the time, it was about your current marriage. So were you aware when you were talking, like, did you change the speech a little because Abby was in the room? Oh, okay. So she says, no one's ever asked me this, but in fact, I did change it. My speech that was largely about my marriage redemption became something different in the moment. It was largely just about all the things that I would think that would make Abby think I was cool. Okay. And then Abby says, I went back to my room that night and she had given me a copy of Love Warrior. I read it from cover to cover that night. I'm a very slow reader and I would rather listen to a book on tape than read it. So I was very dedicated. And then when I got to the end of this book, she didn't really talk about the redemptive part of the marriage in her speech. So I was a little bit like, this is not right. This is not how the story ends. Very shocked. And so when I got an email from her days later, I thought, we're just going to be friends, and that didn't last. Okay. Oh yeah. So also part of the story, she says, and I remember this from the book, I believe, they never touched. They said they loved each other before they had ever touched each other, which I think is sort of odd, but I also didn't come from a Christian background. I came from a Catholic background and I don't know, it's different. Catholics are different, I believe, than like the Christian purity stuff that at least I see on like TLC, like 19 Kids and Counting, where they can't touch each other or anything. So I can't really speak to it myself, but maybe that's part of it, perhaps, why they didn't touch each other, but they were able to like get there. You had never touched, you had never been on a date, and you broke up your marriage without even having experienced this. What if you were not connected? Was there a fear? Like, what if this isn't what I think it's going to be? And then, so they already decided, like, we're going to break up. Well, she was going to break up her marriage. It was already an unhappy marriage that she had written a book about that she was going to work on. I don't know. I mean, I will say she's brave. She's very brave. She's got guts, I'll say, to be able to write that book and then shortly after sort of write another book where she's like, actually, I am with someone else and it's a woman now. It's kind of interesting. And Glennon says, yeah, it didn't matter though, because it was not just like a love story. It was not just like, oh, I am going to stay in this marriage, or am I going to stay in this marriage or marry Abby? It was very clear to me after meeting and having discussions on email that this was a reckoning with myself. It was like, oh, I'm just pretending this thing is something that it's not anymore. It was like hearing from a part of myself that I had buried so long ago. And there she is, and pretending that things are good enough, and pretending that this life, and pretending that this marriage, and it wasn't, am I going to love Craig or Abby? It was, am I going to abandon myself, or am I going to abandon the whole world's expectations of me and just leave this? So it wasn't like I'm leaving because I know this is going to work out. We'd never spent 10 minutes alone together. It was, I'm going to leave because I can't pretend anymore, regardless of whether this works. I mean, I think that's good. Yeah. And then Abby says it was the only thing that made sense at the time. Like, thinking back on it now, I'm like, we were probably literally insane. Like, our brains were so lit up that we couldn't make the right decisions based on external expectations. We were only operating on a soul level. Scientists would say your brain lights up in certain ways and that your prefrontal cortex actually is an enabler of making certain decisions when you fall in love. But the truth is, I think it's even deeper than that for us. It was like a recognizing or remembering. When I walked in that door and we fell in love, it was like, oh, this, because I had up until that point, I had been such a hopeless romantic, and Glennon she never believed in love in her life. And I heard Glennon say this as well before, that she never had loved before meeting Abby. I find that to be sort of weird. but I guess like loveless marriages exist, obviously, but I don't know. Like she was a successful person previous to meeting Abby. She had 3 children. There was no huge indication from what I understand that there was some big, other than him cheating on her, which is, but that doesn't take away the fact that you could have loved him in the beginning. But she said that a few times, that like, I never loved anyone and I had, respect for him and whatever, but I didn't love him like I loved her. I think that would definitely hurt my feelings if I was him hearing that. I mean, maybe he feels the same way, but it's sort of surprising when people come out with that later after they meet their next spouse and they go, oh, I actually never loved that person before. But who knows, again, excuse me. Okay. And then, so for me, this is still Abby. So for me, I always kind of knew that this was possible, that this person was out there. And Abby was also married. I don't know if she was already getting divorced. I'm not sure about the timeline. But she was married to another soccer player, and they got married and lived in LA together in a house. And I'm pretty sure it was quick from this event happening to when they like sold, moved in together, sold their properties, whatever, and boom, they were, full on married. Okay, so for me, I always kind of knew that this was possible. Like this person was out there, and Glennon was like, that's just horseshit. Like all your romantics can go straight to you know where. But at the end of it, I'm so glad that we didn't listen to the world's expectations of what we should have done in that moment, because I truly do know. And it wasn't easy by any means. It was worth it. And then Glennon says, yeah, and I think in life, you just get a few slices of magic, If you believe in anything beyond the everyday mundane, I'm like, here we go. And we're doing this life we're supposed to. It's like every once in a while, magic cuts through. I just think that is a great story, and time will tell, I guess. They haven't been married that long. I think they got married in 2016. So, they're coming up on some, significant anniversaries. But I just, and as a non-married person, but as like someone who thinks they're a realist, marriage is a long time. Sparks of love and excitement is great, but is that what makes a marriage? I don't know. Okay, here is an article. So let's go back a little bit. This is from 2016. So I think this is before, let me just search. When did Glennon Doyle meet Abby? Okay, so this article is September 7th, okay? And she has not met Abby yet at this point when this article was written. She met Abby November 2016. And it says, okay, let me just read the Wikipedia. That's my song. Okay, so Doyle was married to Craig Melton, a former model. From 2002 to 2016. So 14 years. They have 3 children. The family moved from Centerville, Virginia to Naples, Florida. She met Abby Wambach on a book tour. Abby Wambach is a part of was on the U.S. women's national team for soccer, I believe. Or you're going to be like, someone's going to be like, it's actually the Premier League and it's not. So one of those big leagues, a very big deal. She's got like $1 million at least. Okay. In November 2016, Doyle announced that she was in a relationship with Wambach. They married on May 14th, 2017. So they met November 2016 and got married in May 2017. They moved to Hermosa Beach, California in 2021, purchasing a $6.5 million home. Doyle, Wambach, and Melton currently co-parent the 3 children, and she states that they all have family dinners together. Well, that's nice. They truly did choose joy. We truly have it all. And, sure, I'll believe it. Why should I not?
They truly have it all.
But yes, fast. in my opinion. I think, I don't know. There's no hard and fast rules of how fast you should get with somebody, but I think in my own personal experience, I haven't really gotten to know anybody in less than a few years at the earliest. And like things can change very quickly, especially with romantic relationships and kids and all that, Anyway, so let's read about her before she met Abby, but after she knew her husband was I shouldn't say a cheater, but had cheated. And let me show the husband just so we know, just so we can ridicule his ass. I'm just kidding. I don't want to judge him necessarily. Like, yeah, cheating's not good. Like, obviously that's a point blank statement, but who knows what their lives are all like, why things happen. She doesn't seem to blame him too much or, oops. Why does this keep happening? Why can't I just move the screen? Okay, whatever. Here he is. He was a former, I don't know what he does now or what he did like recently in his life, but he was a former model. So there you go. And he also likes soccer too. And here, oh no, I thought that was her for a second. Wait, that's the whole fam, I believe. So they look like a fun, like modern, cool family. Like they look like they should have a reality show. Like, oh, the crazy life of the Doyles. And Doyle, I believe, is her maiden name. Yes, it is, because her sister's also named Doyle. And her sister does the podcast with Glennon. Glennon is such an interesting name, by the way. I've never met anyone named Glennon before. What is the witch in, Glenda, right? In The Wizard of Oz, Glenda the Good Witch. Anyways, okay, here we go. Her marriage was the jewel in her blog universe. Then she found out her husband was cheating. And there she is. Okay. The world can be divided into two groups. Those who have never heard the name Glennon Doyle Melton and those who know pretty much everything there is to know about her. The bulimia, oh yeah, FYI, trigger warning from now forward, eating disorder talk for sure. And drug use is possible because that's a big part of her story. The bulimia and the alcoholism, the anxiety, depression, and drugs. They know the contents of her refrigerator, how she looks when she first wakes up, where she finds God, and what she says in response to her 8-year-old daughter's mid-dinner inquiry about how babies are made. Prayer alone doesn't cut it, she explains. The number of people who know these things about Doyle Melton is not insignificant. She's a writer whose publicity team estimates that her blog and social media posts reach 7 million readers a week. And that camp is about to get a lot bigger. So this is pre-Untamed. Untamed is when she really came on the market. I mean, she already was knowing Oprah. She was in Oprah's book club on the first book, the second book, Love Warrior, about the redemption. And then, so she was already getting popular. And then in 2020, she went even crazier, bigger. So interesting to see Christian mommy blogger can get 7 million hits. And then if you leave that away and go, actually, I'm changing completely, you get even more. And I think that's what Rachel Hollis was hoping for, that she was like, I have an exceptional marriage. I'm an exceptional marriage relationship coach, into divorced, like bad spiritual babe, like not bad, but like bad boss bitch. Like, and she was like, I'm just going to pivot, and it didn't work for her, but it apparently works for Glennon. This week, Doyle published a new book about the one aspect of her life that she hasn't fully shared with followers, her husband's infidelity. I also wonder, and then I wonder this about Dave too, like Dave Hollis. What if the men, are they fine? Are they open? Are they just have no choice in the matter of like, hey, I want to write this book about my life. You're a big asshole. Can I write about that? Do they have to ask? I mean, Rachel says she asked Dave recently. She said she always got his approval. I wonder, I'm assuming that happened here. It's interesting that they would allow that laundry to be aired. I mean, I think it shows sort of maturity, but yeah. When they come out with the novel about how bad their husband is, I'm like, ooh, they're okay with this? Tens of thousands of copies have been pre-ordered, and that was before Oprah announced Love Warrior, a memoir, as her new book club selection, a designation almost guaranteed to catapult it onto bestsellers lists. Yeah. Doyle became a quasi-famous person with a cult following in the traditional way. She quit her job to stay at home with her 3 young kids. Isolation, exaltation, and, oh God, I'm so dumb, ennui ensued, as it does. Every day, she says, was too much and not enough. I can relate to that. Too much and not enough is sort of a untalked about feeling. So I heard her speak about this a few times today, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that's something I could relate to. Relate about it. It's interesting. And so she was a teacher, elementary school teacher, I believe, quit to take care of the kids and then has time at home to blog and raise the kids and things. So that's sort of a typical story. So it seems either you have to have the time and space to write, to start the blog, to run it, at least in this time frame when blogs are big. Not many full-time working women or men, I guess too, I saw really have a successful blog that took them into, fame. It seems to be, which is a good thing to know if you're looking to do the same thing, you sort of have to be at home and have some free time to write a book or have a successful blog. So it seems. I mean, same thing. I didn't start my YouTube channel until I worked for myself. I don't think I could do this while also maintaining like an in-person office job. So it definitely makes a difference. In 2009, the Virginia native was living in Centerville, feeling starved of authentic connection when she noticed people posting Facebook lists of 25 things about me. While her baby napped, Doyle Melton banged out her own list. She wrote about her conflicted feelings about parenthood and marriage and about her stained daily existence. My number 6 was, I'm a recovering food and alcohol addict, but I still find myself missing food and booze in the same twisted way someone can still love a person who beats them and leaves them for dead. Doyle Melton, who now lives in Naples, Florida, recalls during an interview at her sister's home in Falls Church where she was visiting. Later, she noticed that her friend's number 6 was, my favorite snack food is hummus. That's pretty funny. She's like, I wish I could try heroin. I never got the chance, but if I could go back, baby, I would. And like everyone's like, what? My crazy fact is I have a brother. That's funny. I was like, oh crap, we're not doing that here either, she says. By that, she means telling the truth, the real truth. The one that no one was sharing on the playground or at the bus stop or in church. The one that wasn't airbrushed with smiling family photos and knee-jerk pleasantries. I'm great, how are you? Now, okay, this part I agree with to a point, and this seems to be a big sticking point in her work, in her breadths of work. I don't know what you call it, in her... all the work that she does. She seems to really push like women should be more honest about what they're going through. And I don't disagree. I think I had a very strong perspective on this where I was like, everything should be shared all the time. This fake bullshit, it's not good for anybody. Everyone needs to be honest. And I've sort of started to think like, there's close friends for a reason. And I think sharing everything with everyone isn't good unless you're trying to make money from it, which in this case, it worked out for her in that way. But if you're really just trying to share because you feel like that's the right thing to do, I no longer think that that's always best because there's a lot of criticism that comes with anything that you say online. Not everyone understands where you're coming from in the first place. And I think it takes away from having those intimate conversations and having someone respond back to you in real life that knows you and cares about you. When you share it out there and blast things out there, I don't think it necessarily always ends up well for the person. Like I said, if you're looking to monetize, being honest and gritty, that's like very on trend right now in the last, 5-6 years. And I wonder too, in the case of Rachel Hollis as well, how much of it is real and how much of it is, manufactured real. Like, she feels comfortable sharing some things, but not all things. And does that change your perspective on that person and their situation? Because she said, like, she didn't talk about her husband's infidelity until now. So if you were to read something else that she wrote, you might not have that piece to the puzzle. And then now you're applying her advice or her prescription to your life and it doesn't work. And you're like, I don't get it. Maybe because you didn't have that extra piece. So that's my 2 cents. And I think, like I said, I changed a lot. And I think, honestly, going to therapy, as everything, sort of has helped me from that, has helped me realize to like keep some things to myself and not everything has to be shared. And it's almost like trauma dumping or oversharing is like a response because you're like, I've been pent up for so long. I think you find the balance over time. And we're going to talk about this because we're going to listen to her TED Talk. And I have this was one of her earliest works or like her earliest virality. I have a few things and I realize that it's a TED Talk. So there are some limitations to what you can do and like say, like probably certain words you can't use, and you have a time constraint. But I will say I was disappointed in the whole thing. And that's probably the one piece of work that I was like, yeah, I don't really stand by this. And if I was to watch this and people are like, this is the best TED Talk ever. I'm like, did you see Mel Robbins' countdown from 5? Because that is life-changing shiz. No, but I was sort of disappointed in her delivery. And maybe we should skip to that and we can come back to this article, which I really do like. But since we're on the topic of like oversharing and sharing with no payoff, in my opinion, let's see, Glennon Doyle, and it's called like What I Learned at the Mental Hospital. And she made a joke about the mental hospital experience, and I thought I was sort of in poor taste. And I know I'm sensitive to that because, like I've said before, like I haven't been myself in the mental hospital, but I've visited my dad there, and I'm pretty like, this is not it's definitely a life-saving place, but it's not like a place that should be, I don't know, taken lightly, I guess, in my opinion. And I see some TikToks on people that are, in a mental health facility, and, they can joke about it and laugh about it. So who am I to say you can't make jokes? But I don't know in this case that I felt like the joke was like necessarily funny enough to make the cut for me. Okay, so this is from 2013, 9 years ago, called Lessons from the Mental Hospital. Glennon Doyle Melton, TEDx Traverse City. It has that's how many subs they have. 5.5 million views. Okay, there we go.
I have been trying to weasel my way out of being on this stage for weeks. I am terrified. But about a month ago, I was up early panicking about this, and I watched an old TED Talk that Brene Brown did on vulnerability. Dr. Brown is one of my heroes. She is a shame researcher, and I am a recovering bulimic, alcoholic, and drug user. So I'm sort of a shame researcher too. It's just that most of my work is done out in the field. And Dr. Brown defined courage like this. She said, "Courage is to tell the story of who you are with your whole heart." And that got me thinking about another one of my heroes, Georgia O'Keeffe, and how she said, "Whether you succeed or not is irrelevant."
I'm sorry for the volume. I have it cranked up like literally as high as it goes. It's low as hell. I don't know why. So I'll turn myself down and hopefully that helps.
There is no such thing. Making the unknown known is what is important. So, here I am to tell you the story of who I am with my whole heart and to make some unknowns known. When I was 8 years old, I started to feel exposed, and I started to feel very, very awkward. Every day I was pushed out of my house and into school, all oily and pudgy and conspicuous, and to me the other girls seemed so cool and together and easy. And I started to feel like a loser in a world that preferred superheroes. So I made my own capes, and I tied.
Okay, so this part, and I'm sorry again about the volume. I tried to push it up. So yes, TED Talks, just TED, is like the bigger official version. And then they have TEDx, which is like someone in your hometown could start one within certain guidelines. There are still, things you have to do. You still have to apply and whatever. But it's not the same prestige as TED. It's like the Emmys, for example. Like, if you didn't know, I've won a local regional Emmy, okay, in my lifetime. But that's not, I didn't win an Emmy like Saturday Night Live won an Emmy. It's two different things, but they're called the same thing. I'm assuming it's sort of like that because I know that TEDx has a much lower bar. They have more of them, obviously, than TEDs. And some of the TEDx's get pushed up to TED. But yes, they're two different things. This part, going to the content of this, so she's like talking about how she's like 8 or 10, that she started to feel left out, or she started to feel sort of like there's people cooler than her. I find this to be an incomplete story, and I could be wrong, but her reaction to like pretty normal things going on in like a child's life. Like I think every kid sort of gets nervous about going to school or faces, some bullies in school. Like there's obviously different levels of severeness of whatever, of, bullying and things. But I think to say like most kids don't have any problems in school or whatever is not true. I think everyone goes through things in their own experience. Her reaction to what she's explaining here, at least, like a very mild case of, I looked around and people were cooler than I was. Her reaction to that seems misplaced. Like we're missing a piece of the puzzle here, in my opinion. I was like, wait, this story led to this reaction? I don't know if she explains it later in a different book or something, but this is a self-contained piece of content, I was like, wait, what?
Tied them tight around me. My capes were pretending and addiction. But we all have our own superhero capes, don't we? Perfectionism and overworking, snarkiness and apathy. They're all superhero capes. And our capes are what we put over our real selves so that our real tender selves don't have to be seen and can't be hurt. Our superhero capes are what keep us from having to feel much at all, because every good and bad thing is deflected off of them. And so for 18 years, my capes of addiction and pretending kept me safe and hidden. People think of us addicts as insensitive liars, but we don't start out that way. We start out as extremely sensitive truth tellers. We feel so much pain and so much love, and we sense that the world doesn't want us to feel that much and doesn't want to need as much comfort as we need, so we start pretending. We try to pretend like we're the people that we think we're supposed to be. We numb and we hide and we pretend.
This part two is a little bit like, we do this, we do that. And I know Camellia she did a video about Jenna Kutcher, and she did a review on her most recent book that was, of course, a New York Times bestseller. Woohoo! And she said in the book, and I think Savvy said the same thing, like in her book, Jenna Kutcher's book, she says, you know how we all do that thing where we live in Wisconsin and we all drink Starbucks every day and we all love Hobby Lobby? It's like, that sounds like a you story, you know? So this, I think, and this is again like her earlier work, so maybe it develops better later. She gets a handle on her narrative, but I think she's putting a lot of we do this as like this is what all women do. This is what all people with this problem do. And I just don't find that to be true for everybody. Maybe people, and I feel like maybe this is a way to grab the right audience, because the right audience, so let's say this audience is a good example statistically. Like there's 100 people there. 10 people hear her say, we all do this, we all do that. And they go, oh, that's how I see the world. That's how we all are. The 90 other people go, this lady's crazy. This is not what I believe, and they move on. But those 10 become like, this woman's a prophet. Oh my God. And, I just don't think, like, she's telling her own story, but she's saying it in a passive way, in the sense of, active would be, I went through this and I experienced this. But now she's sort of going the self-help way of like, I went through this. That's what we all know to be true in the world. Not a super fan of that.
And that pretending does eventually turn into a life of lies. But to be fair, we thought we were supposed to be lying. They tell us since we're little that when someone asks us how we're doing, the only appropriate answer is fine. And you? But the thing is that people are
like that. Like your mom might have said that. My mom didn't necessarily tell me that, or like my teacher. You could say, I'm good, or, comment ça va bien, like, I don't know, that's like the French way, I suppose, like, ça va mal, not so great, or what, I don't know, like, no one really told me, the only way that women can respond is good, how about you? Like, I don't think that's a universal experience.
Truth tellers. We are born to make our unknown known. We will find somewhere to do it. So, in private, with the booze or the over-shopping or the alcohol or the food, we tell the truth. We say, actually, I'm not fine. Because we don't feel safe telling that truth in the real world, we make our own little world, and that's addiction. That's whatever cape you put on. And so what happens is all of us end up living in these little teeny, controllable, predictable, dark worlds instead of all together in the big, bright, messy one. I binged and purged for the first time when I was 8, and I continued every single day for the next 18 years.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So since she was 8 years old, I think later she says she started when she was 10. So I'm almost sort of like confused about this. How can you change? Like 2 years is significant. Yes, you're a child, but since she's pretty confident that she started when she was 8 in this speech, and then later on was like, oh, when I was 10, I started, binging. I don't know. It just seems maybe it didn't pull well with people. And she's like, 8's too young. You got to pump it up to 10, and maybe 8 was the truth, but people didn't like that, so she moved it to 10. I don't know, but she binged and purged every day from 8 to 18 or 20 or whatever she said, as a response to feeling like she didn't fit in school. I feel like I mean, maybe, yeah, but like, is there something else going on that you're not looking at yet? Because I just find that to be like a very, very big leap from every kid goes through this, right? Every kid's got bulimia. It's like, no, it's not rare, but it's not common. So, okay, this is called, in case you're just coming, Lessons from the Mental Hospital. And it was in 2013, TEDx Traverse City. And she lived in Virginia. So I don't know how close Traverse City is to Centerville, Virginia. But here we go.
Seems normal to me, but you're surprised. Every single time that I got anxious or worried or angry, I thought something was wrong with me. And so I took that nervous energy to the kitchen and I stuffed it all down with food, and then I panicked and I purged, and after all of that, I was laid out on the bathroom floor, and I was so exhausted and so numb that I never had to go back and deal with whatever it was that had made me uncomfortable in the first place. And that's what I wanted. I did not want to deal with the discomfort and messiness of being a human being. So when I was a senior year...
I just find that to be like something else either happened, she doesn't want to share, or there's more. I can't imagine that like this is a natural response to just the average human existence.
Senior in high school, I finally decided to tell the truth in the real world. I walked into my guidance counselor's office and I said, actually, I'm not fine. Someone help me. And I was sent to a mental hospital.
Okay, so she's a teenager in a mental hospital. Now, this is what this whole thing is supposed to be about, right? Lessons from the mental hospital. Tell me what lessons she learned from this, what she's about to say. What lesson was gleaned? Because I haven't heard a lesson yet, other than we all wear capes to protect ourselves from the world of being a human being. I don't really know what that means, but that's what I've learned so far.
And in the mental hospital, for the first time in my life, I found myself in a world that made sense to me. In high school, we had to care about geometry when our hearts were breaking because we were just bullied in the hallway, or no one would sit with us at lunch. And we had to care about ancient Rome when all we really wanted to do was learn how to make and keep a real friend. We had to act tough when we felt scared. We had to act confident when we felt really confused. Pretending was a matter of survival. High school is kind of like the real world sometimes. But in the mental hospital, there was no pretending. The jig was up.
I don't know mental hospital, like what, can you give a name? Can you reveal your doctor, please? No, I'm just kidding. But like, yeah, mental hospital is sort of like a slang term almost. Like you'd say I was in a psychiatric ward for teens, or I was at St. Gertrude's, mental health unit. Like, this is 2013. This is not like 1985. Like I was in the loony bin, it'd probably be a few steps lower than this. But yeah, mental hospital just sounds a little bit outdated.
About how to express how we really felt through music and art and writing. We had classes about how to be a good listener and how to be brave enough to tell our own story while being kind enough not to tell anybody else's. We held each other's hands sometimes just because we felt like we needed to. Nobody was ever allowed to be left out. Everybody was worthy. That was the rule, just because she existed. And so, in there, we were brave enough to take off our capes. All I ever needed to know, I learned in the mental hospital. I remember this sandy-haired girl who was so beautiful, and she told the truth on her arms. And I held her hand one day while she was crying, and I saw that her arms were just sliced up like pre-cut hams. Ugh. In there, people wore their scars on the outside, so you knew where they stood. And they told...
Okay, that line also concerned me a little bit. It's like, that's also like a thing that probably should be addressed. Like, the girl she's speaking about, first of all, the visual, not necessary, a little bit graphic, and the doing that, we get it. We didn't need that. Thank you, Glennon. But yeah, it's sort of like, that sort of, to me, seemed like very a flowery way to say that was what it is. And like, she wears her truth on her arms as like a badge of honor almost. Like, that's not what she said, but that's how I'm perceiving it. Like, oh, in the mental hospital, people wear their emotions outwards, and that's better. That's what we should do in our normal day-to-day lives. It's like, you know, like, I don't know if that's the message that should be shared among teen girls or anyone really. So that was a little bit shocking and kind of like, I'm not on board with that.
The truth, so you knew why they stood there.
And then like no follow-up, like, well, she had issues with her parents or she was dealing with whatever, like, again, like she just another, like a person who her reaction to everyday life was to self-harm. It's like, we don't have any, like, what was the root cause of it? We don't get that. And I don't know if Glennon ever talks about the root cause of her issues that I've heard yet, at least in this TED Talk. And we'll listen to other things too, where I just don't know what caused the problem in the first place. I don't know if she knows yet.
So I graduated from high school and I went on to college, which was way crazier than the mental hospital.
Okay, that was the line that I thought was insensitive. It's like, college was way crazier than the mental hospital. It's like, okay, have you ever, I mean, I guess she has been in the mental hospital, but like, if you've ever been in a mental institution of any kind, of behavioral health, clinic, whatever, some inpatient place, you fucking know that it's not like a dorm room in college. It's like the same experience. Like, it's a very, I don't want to say serious, it's not always serious place, but serious things happen at these places. And I just think for me, as you know, like I said, I'm sensitive to people sort of making light of mental health and that way. Like, it should be treated with a little bit more respect, I think. Just a teeny bit more for my taste, personally.
In college, I added on the capes of alcoholism and drug use. The sun rose every day, and I started binging and purging. And then when the sun set, I drank myself stupid. The sunrise is usually people's signal to get up.
Okay, and someone asked how far we are. We're 8 minutes in, 17 minutes in total. I don't know if we have to listen to the whole thing, but this is sort of interesting. She graduates from college, despite saying this very extreme. So not only did the mental hospital, and I'm using mental hospital because she's using it, not only did her stay there not solve her problem, so I don't know what lesson other than we held our hands together sometimes and our scars on the outside, like, okay, that's, you know, it didn't work for her long term. She goes back to binging and purging. Now she's adding on alcoholism and she's sleeping all day and whatever. But somehow she manages to graduate from college during this, and she graduated from high school, like, which I guess, you know, sort of is okay. Like, you could binge and purge and graduate, but she doesn't seem to have any long-term repercussions for any of these very extreme things that happened to her. And I'm surprised by that. I'm sort of just like, oh, everyone else I've ever heard talk about these things that talks about these things on a much less severe level have lifelong consequences. So for her to tell these stories like, I did this crazy thing and this crazy thing, like, and then just to be like, and I just recovered. It's like, whoa, well, I'm recovering currently and I'm great now. Seems, wow, like, okay.
But it was my signal every day to come down from the booze and the boys and the drugs, and I could not come down. That was to be avoided at all costs, so I hated the sunrise. I closed the blinds, and I'd put the pillow over my head while my spinning brain would torture me about the people who were going out into their day, into the light, to make relationships and pursue their dreams and have a day. And I had no day. I only had night. And these days, I like to think of hope as that sunrise. It comes out every single day to shine on everybody equally. It comes out to shine on the sinners and the saints and the druggies and the cheerleaders. It never withholds. It doesn't judge. And if you spend your entire life in the dark and then one day just decide to come out, it'll be there, waiting for you, just waiting to warm you. You know, all those years I thought of that sunrise as searching and accusatory and judgmental. But it wasn't. It was just hope's daily invitation to me to come back to life. And I think if you still have a day, if you're still alive, you're still invited. I actually graduated from college, which makes me both grateful to and extremely suspicious of my alma mater. And I found myself sort of in the real world and sort of not. On Mother's Day.
Okay, so if you're familiar with Heidi Powell's story from curing herself of her ED, in Heidi's video, she says that the thing that got her to originally heal herself, now, you know, I have my doubts about that being an accurate representation of healing, but whatever. Just let her have her story. Heidi's story is that she got pregnant and then she decided that, oh, I want to eat for my baby. Therefore, my ED is cured because now I'm eating for my baby and I don't binge and purge anymore and I'm healed. The baby healed me, changed me, made me better. Similar, I think, is what Glennon's also saying here. She doesn't fully commit to it, but that's what she's sort of insinuating, is from my understanding.
2002, I'm not good at years, we'll just say on Mother's Day, I had spun deeper and deeper. I wasn't even Glennon anymore. I was just bulimia. I was just alcoholism. I was just a pile of capes. But on Mother's Day, one Mother's Day, I found myself on the cold bathroom floor, hungover, shaking, and holding a positive pregnancy test. And as I sat there with my back literally against a wall, shaking, and understanding washed over me. And in that moment on the bathroom floor, I understood that even in my state, even lying on the floor, that someone out there had deemed me worthy of an invitation to a very, very important event. And so that day on the bathroom floor, I decided to show up, just to show up, to climb out of my dark, individual, controllable world and out into the big, bright, messy one. And I didn't know how to be a sober person or how to be a mother or how to be a friend. So I just promised myself that I would show up and I would do the next right thing.
And there we go. That's sort of my issue. And again, like, you know, people evolve. This was, 9 years ago. So, but like, I think of myself 9 years ago. So 2013, that's when I graduated from college. Like, I definitely was different, but I wasn't this different, I guess. Like, and that's just, I'm not that important of a person, but this sort of is in line with Heidi Powell's story, Rachel Hollis's story, Dave Hollis's story. Glennon's not even really speaking about therapy. She hasn't talked about any other treatment other than one-time stint in high school in a mental hospital. Okay, that didn't work apparently. That she's decided to cure her mental illness. I just find that to be problematic. I'm sorry. I find that to be problematic because that goes in line with you control everything in your life. You control your destiny, your future. You control your addictions. You control whatever. And I just find that it's much more deep and, having help, having a professional help you is probably one of the best ways to move forward from something so severe as what she's described thus far in this talk. To just say, I was pregnant and I decided to show up for my life. It's like, what does that even mean? Show up. You've been showing up every day. You're alive. You're there. You went to college. You graduated from college. You got married. Like I think she's already married at this point in 2002. So, you've done a lot of life things already. Was that not showing up? it's just, I'm confused by the language, and I've always been confused by the language in the self-help sense of like, what are you talking about? What do you actually mean? What does this look like tomorrow morning when I wake up from my slumber? And they never get there because it means what you think it should mean. Therefore, you keep buying the books. And I'm not saying she's as bad. She doesn't have a million courses to sell you. She's not selling you a million books to try to solve your anxiety problems. But listening to this and listening to her words, can you heal yourself from debilitating ED? No, probably not. Most likely not. Can 1 out of a million do it? Maybe. But is that the solution that most people should do? Probably not.
Just show up, Glennon. Even if you're scared, just do the next right thing, even when you're shaking. And so I stood up. Now, what they don't tell you about getting sober, about peeling off your capes, is that it gets a hell of a lot worse before it gets better. Getting sober is like recovering from frostbite. It's all of those feelings that you've numbed for so long, now they're there and they're present. And at first, it just...
Okay, hold on. I want to bring up this giant comment. Okay, not to be mean, and I'm only going to address it, and I don't mean to not address the positive ones, or not even positive, but like whatever. I think, and this is not really directed at you, Complicated Phoenix, but I think we need to be able, and this is something I'm going to die on the hill on. We need to be able to critically look at things, especially people who are telling you how they solve their life problems and how their life story could be applicable to your life story. So instead of going, how dare you, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but don't even look at this. Don't even look. Just accept the general consensus that she's a good person and there's nothing to dissect. That is extremely dangerous, and you should be careful about who you're surrounding yourself with, because without that critical eye, critical does not mean negative. Critical does not mean I hate her and I have nothing to learn from her and she's absolutely a horrible person. I feel like that is just the wrong way to be, the wrong way to handle things, and you're setting yourself up to be scammed. I'm sorry. Setting yourself up to be manipulated, setting yourself up to be hurt down the line. And I hope that you change, honestly. I'm not saying that to be a bitch. I'm just saying that I hear you. The point is, look at everybody and everything and then decide. Don't just blindly follow like, oh, I read online or something. Oh no. Tarot. I'm back? Okay. That was just a temporary glitch, everybody. I don't know what I ended on, but apparently, thank you. I'm just sick staring to the abyss, like silently, internally crying. I don't know why. Maybe that person just got mad and they were like, report, mass report. Okay. So basically my whole point was, and this is the thing I need to work on, and I address at the top of the video. So if you haven't seen that part, you're just coming in live. If you have a chance, I think on minute 3, I sort of go into a monologue about what I need to work on this channel, and to hopefully make it that I'm not just this hate channel, toxic channel, like anyone on here is going to be ripped to shreds. We need to be able to have more balanced conversations, that people who do good work can also make mistakes and do bad work, or make a point that doesn't align with me, and I have a right to talk about it. And you guys have a right to listen to it and agree or disagree. But I think the premise of that comment that came in, that, and they're not banned, that person, by the way. I did not ban them. They might have banned me. for temporarily. You know, I just think that if you are unwilling to even hear the other side or a possible negative side, you're setting yourself up for failure, period. So that was my point. Yeah, and I think the points that have been made so far, I've said a lot of positive things about Glennon so far, and I'm now getting into some of my more, you know, critical points. Too bad. Anyways, yeah, don't even tell me you like me because I can't, we're not having a parasocial relationship. Okay? That's how much I don't want to try to influence you in a way that's like not appropriate, or I don't know. I don't want to ever have you not think of me either as like, oh, she can do no wrong. Whoever she decides is, you know, someone she doesn't like I will like her, not like them too. Don't listen to anyone but your own, you know, inner being. And if you like my take, great. If you don't, you know, I'll cry about it privately in my house and I'll be okay. Anyways, let's go back. Yeah, I don't think so far, and again, just as an overarching thing, Glennon on the spectrum of you know, bad guru, bad self-help person, she's not at the top of the list, okay? She's not an overt scammer. She provides a lot of free content and, you know, $30 or less books. I don't have a huge issue, especially on the finance side, and especially in the types of offerings that she offers. I think she's on the good side of things. Can she get it wrong, in my opinion? Yes. Even someone like that can still, I think, cross over into, you know, oh, I don't like this part, but I do like this part. So that's it. That's my point. Here we go.
It feels kind of tingly and uncomfortable, but then those feelings start to feel like daggers. The pain, the loss, the guilt, the shame, it's all piled on top of you with nowhere to run. But what I learned during that time is that sitting with the pain and the joy of being a human being while refusing to run for any exits is the only way to become a real human being.
That's another part too. Something I found in her work that I've listened to is you're already a human being, in my opinion. During the bad times and the good times, I find a lot of self-help people talk about this like nirvana, like show up for yourself, meet yourself, become yourself, be the best version of you, show up as a human being and become you. It's like you are you always and already. So it's like, oh, once I heal, then I'll be a human being. It's like you were the whole time. So I don't like that point. Not just her, but generally when people say like, or insinuate that there's some other human being species that we're all trying to attain. It's like, I think human beings are flawed from the get-go. So, you know, you don't really become a human being.
And so these days, I'm not a superhero, and I'm not a perfect human being, but I am a fully human being, and I'm so proud of that. I am, fortunately and frustratingly, still exactly the same person as I was when I was 20 and 16 and 8 years old. I still feel scared all the time, anxious all the time, oily all the time.
Again? Dave.
Somebody ought to smack you. Their building's bigger than yours, and their furniture's nicer than yours. This is just stupid. This is just stupid. Nothing.
I'm back, baby. They can't silence us.
This is just stupid.
God. Dave?
You have to think instead of sitting around eating Skittles and watching Oprah reruns.
Freaking TEDx, come on. From 2013. Where are you? Come on. Why can't we watch this? This is promoting, or maybe it's not promoting, perhaps. Maybe this is promoting the TEDx brand, baby. This is an endorsement of, this is a sponsored post by TEDx. TEDx can suck it. Or whoever else is reporting this.
This is just stupid.
TEDx.
Somebody ought to smack you.
Anyways, so that was the gist, essentially. The wrap up there, from what I remember, is like, she doesn't really say what, she's like, in that last line, I don't know if you saw it or if it cut off first, but it was like, she says, and today I am a living human being and I'm not perfect, I'm flawed, but I'm here and I'm doing good and I'm feeling everything and that's wonderful. And I'm married with 3 kids and that's my life. I'm Glennon Doyle. So that was the overall theme. Again, what did she do to recover and fix the issue other than getting pregnant? I don't know. She says as of late, like in this year, that she still struggles with her eating disorder. So I don't know. Like, she talks in her book about being on medication. That's good. But at least in these early days, in this time frame, if I was just to watch that piece of content alone, I would be like, oh, so maybe if I just have a child, then all my problems will disappear. And I don't think that's necessarily the best message. So it sounds like, she does talk about it later in the future. But this, that 2013 video was sort of like inconclusive for me. So everyone, now that we're back, let's take a clear.
Clear.
Hopefully the other shit doesn't get, I don't know, like TEDx, like, come on. How I played a whole like TEDx talk of Gabby Bernstein and nothing happened. So I guess I'll just read. I'll have to read to everybody. But that was the gist. So we got the majority of that. Okay, we looked at the ex-husband. Now, she went on Marie TV and talked. There's a couple things that we can watch in this. Marie Forleo. Now, I would consider Marie Forleo boss babe, self-help. That's another book I read in like 2019 was Marie Forleo's book, Everything is Figure Outable. And I really, really tried to like it. And I even wrote in my journal, like in my, actual journal that I have, like, okay, I'm going to try to be like Marie Forleo and everything is figure outable and figure out my life. And when I actually look back and think of like the problems that I was going through and the problems that she was going through, I'm like, oh my God, I literally thought they were the same. She's like, I couldn't find a big enough studio space in New York to film my TV show. Well, her YouTube show. And then I, asked a friend and they found me a space last minute. Oh, everything's figure outable. And then I'm like, I'm dealing with debilitating family trauma. We're like, just basically this book will help me for sure. I don't need any other help than this book. Taro's currently in the bathroom. Last time I saw her, she was on the bath mat. Hold on. Come here, kitty. We'll see if she goes to my siren call. Okay. So Marie Folio, she is the woman and the boss babe behind B School, like the $3,000 online business school that is not like going to real business school. In my opinion, I never took it. I cannot do a review on that for $2,000. I refuse. But basically it's like a marketing. If you want to launch your online business, Marie will teach you how to do it. And she also is self-help adjacent. Yeah. Taro's always in the bathroom.
He's always in the bathroom.
She's always in the bathroom. Okay. Here we go. And so we'll do like the little, the only big critique I have here is like a little one. Really, it's the biggest critique and it's tiny. It is like fun, wild girls, women don't sit in couches normally. We like to kick off our shoes and sit comfortably. This is something that Rachel Hollis started doing. I don't know when, but at some point she started to like curl up on the couch and like interview Tony Robbins. It's like the new thing to do, I guess, is like, we don't sit on couches anymore. We sprawl out during our interviews. And, I think that is a way to show your relatability personally. You don't want to look stuffy in these interviews. You want to look like, I'm just your gal pal. Now, whether you think that's manipulative or not, I could debate either way, but just something I noticed. And then, so we're going to skip over a little bit of it, but let's start in the beginning, and then we'll skip to the 3 or 4 parts that I found to be sort of interesting.
In this episode of Marie TV, we do have some adult language. So if you have little ones around, grab your headphones now.
Hey, it's Marie Forleo, and welcome to another episode of Marie TV and the Marie Forleo podcast. So today you are in for a treat. I have one of my dearest friends. She's a brilliant writer, and she's got a new book out that I know you are going to love. Glennon Doyle is the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Love Warrior, which was an Oprah's Book Club selection, as well as the New York Times bestseller, Carry On Warrior.
And neither one are totally relevant anymore because this book changes it all. And then the next book will be totally different maybe as well.
Glennon is an activist and speaker, and she's the founder and president of Together Rising. She lives in Florida with her wife and 3 children. Her latest book, Untamed, is available now. Glennon!
My Marie.
I know, my audio guy's like, what the hell is she doing? You guys, Untamed.
You guys. This book is so good, you want to beat your own legs with it.
I texted you from the plane. I was halfway through. I was bursting out of my skin because this thing is incredible. I was like, who is my friend? Who has my friend become? How has she become one of the most brilliant, moving writers I have ever had the pleasure of reading in my life? Like, I have so many damn underlines in here. I'm like, holy cow, this interview is going to be, I was like, texted you, like, how long do you have today? Because this conversation going to be big. Congratulations.
Thank you. I can't believe you said bursting out of your skin. That's what I want this to do. I want it to get women to burst out of their skin.
And it will. And it will. I have a feeling it's going to be top anything.
I feel like that's how I would conduct this interview. Oh, and it twill. It twill indeed, Glenny. That's the type of stuff I would have in interviews. Oh, I'm sure it will.
That you can possibly imagine. So, I love the line. When women learn how to please, we forget who we are. So for those in our audience who may not know who you are quite yet, or just may not be familiar with your story and your journey, can you share a little bit about what inspired you to write Untamed? And I will share another line. I'm be doing this a lot in this interview, you guys, basically telling Glennon about her own brilliant words. What follows is how I got caged and how I got free.
Well, who I am, I've spent the last 10 years writing and speaking about feminism, really, about women trusting themselves.
Capes, feminism. I mean, at least in that first one, which is like one, I'm sure she's spoken all over and a million times and it's changed. And so I, don't want to judge too harshly, but there was no feminism in that first one, the TEDx talk that I heard, and maybe feminism comes in different forms, but I didn't get feminism vibes from that one.
And believing in themselves and conspiring together and challenging institutions and ideas. And then I got all of that tested fairly recently, a few years ago. I was struggling for many reasons in my marriage. That was the last book. And I was at an event, and a woman walked in the door, and I looked at her, and 3 words swelled up in my being, and the words were, "There she is." And for a long time, I thought those words had come from on high, like this was some magical Disney moment. It took me a while to realize that those words had actually come from within, right? That I was actually hearing from the voice of the person I was before the world told me who to be, right? Because I felt...
Okay, isn't that the most Dave Hollis quote sentence you've ever heard? Now, I would guess that Dave would have gotten it from Glennon, not the other way around. But show up to who you were before you were supposed to be who you are. It's like, I don't know. I know there's things that our parents put on us, and there's things that society may put on us, like, go to college, get a good job, whatever, get married, have children. I get that. But I don't think that's who we are, and I don't identify that as who we are as people. Those are just things that people do. So this whole thing about, this is the real me, the one that was the mother to these 3 kids already, and the wife and all that. I think that's still you too. I don't know. I just find it's like, I'm different now. I am a person now. She was a different person in 2013 as well. She's like, I'm a fully whatever great human being now. After she kind of decided, after she got pregnant. Now she's doing it again. So who's to say it's not going to happen again? I don't know. And this is her describing again the meeting her wife for the first time, and sort of the magical thinking of I saw her, and it was like this magical moment, and I thought it was from God, but it was actually from within. And I don't find evidence of those things in my life, and maybe I'm just cynical, but I think these sort of, it was fate things tend to down the line disappoint us or keep us in things longer than we necessarily need to be, because we're like, this is divine. This is a divine relationship. This is not just a normal relationship that I can leave at any time. And maybe in this case it's not so much, but I think hearing the advice and you're like, well, when I met this guy or woman or whoever, something inside me told me this is a good person to be with. Now 6 months later, the relationship sucks, but that voice 6 months ago told me this is the one, so I better stay. That's where I think I can go off course.
In love with her, and it was the first time I'd loved
going back.
Right? Because I fell in love with her, and it was the first time I'd loved someone beyond the people who I had been conditioned to love, right? And I wanted her so much, and it was the first time I had wanted something beyond who I'd been trained to want and what I'd been trained to want, right? So what unfolded next was this question, will I trust that voice? Will I trust myself? Because what I realized is it's one thing to be a feminist out in the world saying, believe women, trust in women. And it's quite another thing to become a woman who actually trusts herself.
Yes.
Right? Because the whole rest of the world, you can imagine that the whole rest of the world was saying to me, no, about sort of upending my life and following my truth to love Abby. But I think that's kind of when you realize that you're starting to untame, when the whole rest of the world is going, no. And you're going, yeah.
You're like, this is the good stuff.
You're like, if this makes
Sure, okay. I don't think the whole world was like, you must be with a man and your husband. There is no alternative. If anything, the world really got on board with Glennon after she came out with, hey, I'm in love with this woman. People, I think, and I'm sure she lost a lot of fans, but even more people got on board with her message and things. So I don't think she really told the world to fuck off. She really said, embrace me, and they did. So, I mean, great. I'm happy for her, but I don't think it's necessarily the FU that she's sort of making it seem like it was.
no sense to the world, then this must be me finally hearing from myself.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And for those who don't know your journey specifically, all of this was going down when your last book was like soaring to the top of the charts. Oprah had you on the show. We're talking about marriage. You're a faith-based person. There's like all of these different layers, and it's like, whoa.
And life is inconvenient that way.
Yes.
Right? You'll get tested right at the moment. You'll get tested. The universe will say, that's nice that you're out there preaching that. Do you believe it?
Yeah.
Right? Because, I announced my divorce, I think, a few weeks before my book came out, that was touted as a marriage redemption story. And this is life.
Yes.
Right? This is life.
Yes. So before we go any further, we have a lot of writers and aspiring writers and creators in our audience. And I want to take a little bit of a right turn for a minute into the structure of the book, because I get asked a lot of questions about,
The only other thing too, just a side note before I forget, she's about to talk about like how the book is untamed and the way she wrote it, and like the cover is kooky, crazy, she's very wild. It's not like she moved to a commune and like lives, I don't know, in a windmill or something. Like she's like, I ditched convention. It's like, you married a woman, but you also are in the institution of marriage. You have a podcast, like, there's a lot of things that she's still doing that are pretty normal and like, accepted in society. I think there's a lot of like self-congratulations. Like and she's going to talk about like her analogy of a cheetah and how cheetahs are bred to be, tamed at the zoo, and how she and others are really meant to be wild and crazy. It's like, wild and crazy for the average person, not even. Like, you got married to a woman. Like, that's the crazy part that she did. I'm sort of missing the other element of like, everything was nuts from then on. I have no rules anymore. It's like, okay.
my gosh, I have this other idea for a book, or I want to write my first one. How do I do it? And what I so appreciated about yours was it's like these little, I would call them almost like little chapterettes, like toastettes, like little delicious pieces of toast that I want to put tomatoes and mozzarella on. And then we go into an area that there's like Q&A, and then it's different. It is untamed in its structure. And so I'm curious from the craft of writing side, did you go in with that intention, or did the book kind of reveal that to you as you were writing it?
It felt to me, writing this book, art feels to me the same way that religion or sexuality, all these categories that we have, right? So I have this like wild faith inside of me, right? This unique, wild idea about who God is and who I am and how we co-create together. And then I get this blueprint for religion. And I'm like, not that. It doesn't fit in there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I have a sexual identity, right? That's like weird and different, and I can't really explain, and was different last year than is this year. And then they're like, here's the blueprints for sexuality. And I'm like, I don't fit. What's in here, the wild in here, doesn't fit inside there, which is what a lot of people are saying now, which is why our old ideas of sexuality are crumbling.
Yes.
And our old ideas of religion are crumbling, right?
Yes.
Same with art. I wrote this book.
And I'm not saying that this is what she's saying, but it almost comes off as like, I was the first lesbian, like I was the first one to discover you didn't have to marry a man. You could actually marry a woman. What? And like, you don't have to go to church. You could just believe whatever you want. It's like, oh my God, what? And this is in 2020. I'm just, I'm nitpicking here, but it seems a little bit outrageous. Like, yeah, you bucked convention, but you also wrote 2 books previously, pretty in line with like your religious upbringing, from what it seems. And now the 3rd one, you're like, okay, now I'm ready to live in my truth. It's like, great, awesome, but like give it some time maybe to feel it out before proclaiming like you have the answers. But like I said, I'm nitpicking here. She's not a horrible person, okay? Just for the record, everybody. Leave me alone. I'm just kidding.
Which is really about getting that wild inside out into the world.
Am I the only lesbian? Guys, I have a new concept. It's called lesbian. What do you think? What do you think about it? I'm going to try it on.
And living with integrity, which means that our insides match our outsides, right? In a very structured way at first. It was like, it was essay after essay about what it means to be a woman in the world. And I sat down with a dear friend and was figuring out, why isn't this working? And by the way, this was 100,000 words in, okay?
Yeah, that's no small amount.
No, at that point, you're like, I'll just make this work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we figured out, you're writing a book about being untamed, and you're trying to put it in an old structure that's been created by somebody else.
Yep.
You're trying to birth this thing, this idea. I mean, art is just about having a vision inside of us and somehow through like all this blood, sweat, and tears, making it real in the world.
Yep.
You have this particular wild vision inside of you and you're trying to fit it into somebody else's structure. Burn it, throw it away, let it all burn. Start over. I wrote it, the opening vignette is about a cheetah. I wrote it like that cheetah. Like, I want to run through this. I don't want to second guess myself. I don't want to try to fit it into anybody. I want the reader to be breathless by the end.
Yep.
Right? That's how I wrote it. And I think it feels wild.
It does. It feels fantastic. And when I say it makes sense, I mean on an intuitive.
Okay, let me write that down. It feels fantastic is another good soundbite. 8 minutes in. You're right. I saw someone's comment. Let me bring it up. Juliana Santos. Thank you. I think you're right. That's a good point. That, being a lesbian and being older and exploring, you're right. It is. I think I sort of take their word. I'm saying there as in some of these other self-help people too, when they go, we all do this. I did this and this is how the world reacted. Like, she was the one who said, the world didn't want me to be the way I truly am. And I just find that to be not true. Maybe in her world, her parents, her whatever, weren't on board. Yeah, and that is difficult. But I think she's almost putting all of this onto everyone. And I'm just saying there's a lot more people who are for it and supportive than there were most likely, at least from evidence of her growth in the last 2 years, who are supportive than were, dismissive of it. Not to say it takes away from the pain and the scariness and the bravery that it took for her to do what she did. But she's not the first one. That's all I'm saying.
And soulful level, not necessarily from a logical structured place, because that's why I was like, yes, I was like, even how this book unfolds is untamed. And so I'm curious, like from like the publishing standpoint or editing standpoints, did you get some pushback initially or yes? Okay,
yeah.
cool.
I feel like if you don't get some pushback initially, that means you're not doing anything new.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it's very interesting to be an artist because your job is to always push the envelope, to always do the next thing that no one's ever seen before.
Yes.
But inherent in that is that you're bringing that new thing to a structure that is built on, but all of these other things have worked.
Totally.
Right? So it is your job as the visionary to push back on that. It is their job, by the way, to still say, yikes.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so important to be with a team, be with an editor, be with a publishing house that believes in your vision even when they're afraid.
Absolutely. We experienced that with Everything is Figure Outable too. And I was really grateful to have people that I could have those tough conversations with and that we could go back and forth. And like for me, to be able to just remind them like, hey, here's why you invested in me. Yeah. Because you saw something different, that I was going to do something a little different. So yeah.
And you trust your people that they'll get it, right? Yes. And it's not just with art, it's with your life.
And, again, here is like, you just need to have a publishing house who agrees with you. It's like, how many aspiring writers would love to have any book deal whatsoever? It's like, just get like a publishing house that's, in line with your vision. It's like, okay, the reason why you have the publishing house that's okay with your vision now is because you wrote 2 bestsellers already about, your marriage, and now they're willing to take the risk. It just, again, not bad advice, nothing toxic about it, but it's just like unrelatable to most people that are probably watching this and going, yeah, I have an idea for a book. It's like, oh, my advice is to just get a publishing house that agrees with you. It's like, okay, how?
It's
Yes.
with your
How you do that.
relationship.
Yes.
It's with the way that you speak about your faith. Like, oh my God, that's scary. That doesn't fit into the mold. I think they'll get it.
Yes. 100%.
I think they'll get it. And even if they don't agree, they're going to feel that. They might not say, they're going to feel the truth and the beauty in it.
That's right.
Right? We're not trying to be right. And when you're an artist and they say that won't sell, you have to say, okay, all right. I'd much rather make what's real and true and see what happens than change this thing
Yep.
to fit what you tell me will happen next.
Yes. Absolutely. You talked about the cheetah story, which, by the way, come on.
Love a theme.
Let's stay on theme, baby. So the story about the cheetah and the dirty pink bunny, oh my God, I was laughing, but also the metaphor of that just struck me so hard. I'm wondering if you can share that story, because I think it alludes to the fact that so many of us begin to get caged at a very early age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that day because, like when you're messing with ideas in your mind and then you see the metaphor for it in the world, there's no more exciting moment, right?
Yes.
So I'm at the zoo, this like safari park with my daughters, and we go to this.
What if it was Joe Exotic? Actually, it could be the one with Carol Baskin, because she lived in Florida at the time. So and then Naples is not that far away from Tampa, which is where Carol Baskin's sanctuary is. And if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about Joe Exotic, the whole documentary about the tigers and all that. So maybe there is a cheetah at the park that day. We'll never know.
Thing called the Cheetah Run. It's the park's big event for the day. And the zookeeper comes out and she's holding the leash of a lab. And I'm like, what? So she says, is this our cheetah? The kids all say no. And she said, you're right. This is Minnie the lab. We raised Minnie alongside Tabitha the cheetah so that we could tame her. And now Tabitha and Minnie are best friends, and Tabitha does whatever Minnie does. And something about, then we watched the cheetah run. Tabitha, Minnie went first, and they attached this pink stuffed dirty bunny to a Jeep, this little Jeep. And then the Jeep took off, and Minnie the lab chased the dirty pink bunny, right? Tabitha watches from her cage. Open the cage, Tabitha walks out, just majestic, gorgeous, muscles rippling.
Gorgeous, gorgeous
And this
cheetahs.
gorgeous, majestic creature stands at the freaking starting line and chases this dirty pink bunny. Why is this wild animal following this worn path, settling for this applause of these spectators when she could turn to those zookeepers and tear them to shreds if she remembered her wild, right? Why is she doing it? Because she's been tamed, because she's been raised to be a lab. And it just struck me that, holy crap, if a cheetah, if a freaking
Women should all rip apart everyone they come in contact with. God, why didn't I think of this? Oh! Just commit predator-prey activities on everyone.
cheetah can be tamed to forget her wild, certainly a woman can too,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then I started thinking
It's not
about
totally
all of the
connecting for me.
dirty pink bunnies that women are trained
To chase. Yes.
right? You think about, I talked to a group of women recently and they were not, at first they weren't buying this cheetah thing. And I was like, okay, all right, I want you to start talking to me about all of the things that you were taught to believe about what makes a good girl. What makes a good.
Now, I think this is also a Rachel Hollis connection. And we can watch that next about Rachel, the similarities and sort of that is Rachel trying to be Glennon and the timeline that, sort of supports that maybe, yes. But yeah, a good girl. Who wants to be a good girl? Like we're told all these things. This is a trope, and I hate to call it a trope, but it is, that I hear with a lot of motivational speakers, especially motivational speakers that are in the making, like not wannabes, that's a mean word, but like ones that are up and coming or ones that are getting started in the industry. And the only reason I know that a little bit is because I've worked with some of them and like for companies where I'll edit their speaker reels for a while. And I got to, listen to all their motivational beaches, and a lot of people who have no qualifications, like basically they're life coaches, but they're trying to start a motivational speaking career too to get clients. Like, I don't know, let's say I did 200, 150 of the women would say their whole story was, I had everything. I did everything right. I got married. I had children. I worked hard. I got a college degree, and I still wasn't happy. I didn't solve all of my problems. It's crazy. So I'm here now to say that I am a life coach, and I healed myself by being a life coach. I don't know. They never had a solution as to what changed, what they actually did to go from unsatisfied in life despite doing it all right to the end result of now they're there to coach you to live into your truth or whatever the fuck, which I don't know what that means in real terms. And I just find it's like, yeah, like a lot of people, especially people who are of lesser means, are not as, rich. Yeah. Like I think they think like, oh, I'm rich and I'm, I have everything at my disposal. I should be happy. And it's like, yeah, well, there's more to life than that. There's much more. There's community and family and friends and things that are, driving you forward and whatever. And it's like, yeah, no shit. It's almost like, yeah, you just figured this out. I don't know. Maybe I'm being mean and maybe everyone thinks like, yeah, if you went to college, then you should be happy. It's like, I think most people know that by now, but maybe these people late to the game, they just write a book about it and they profit unbelievably. So maybe I'm the idiot that doesn't know that this is not a widely known concept, that there's more to life than like success and money, but I don't know.
Good wife. What makes a successful woman? And they just started, be quiet, be small, be pleasing, be
nice.
Accommodating, be nice, be humble. And then, there's your dirty pink bunnies.
Yeah.
Be perfect, be thin, be beautiful, be faultless, be over and over and over again. And then we wonder why we are unfulfilled, why we are exhausted, why we are overwhelmed and underwhelmed at the exact same time. It's because we were meant for wildness, but we're chasing these dirty pink bunnies that somebody else put in our path.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's the cheetah. I think like it was so cool because later they led Tabitha into this field, and then the zookeeper started talking about cheetahs that were raised in captivity. Right? And the little girl raised her hand and said, "But does Tabitha miss the wild?" And the zookeeper said, No. Tabitha was born here. She doesn't know any better, right? Or she doesn't know any different. And Tish, my daughter, was watching Tabitha in that field, and she pointed to Tabitha, and she said, "Mommy, she changed." So I look over at Tabitha, and Tabitha is a different animal, away from the zookeeper, away from the dirty pink bunnies. Her posture has changed. She's looking regal. She's looking fierce. She's kind of stalking the periphery of the fence, looking
she
beyond
was gnawing
the fence.
on
You
an
could just
unsuspecting
see this energy rise up into
zoo-goer.
her, and Tish looks at me and she goes, "Mommy, she turned wild again." And I thought, that's what happens because Tabitha has never seen the wild. It's in her.
Yes.
Right? And that's what women are feeling. It's this like restlessness, this stalking of the periphery. This is all I've seen. All I've seen is a bunch of minis.
Yeah.
Right? But I know I'm meant for something different.
I don't know if it's like my brain doesn't work good. My brain no work good. But this doesn't work for me. I'm not saying what she's saying is wrong. It doesn't connect with me. Like I can hear analogies all day and I'm like, tell me as like a person living today, a 31-year-old aspiring YouTuber with a lot of insecurity, but also fairly, stable now, and wanting to fulfill, a normal but good life. How do I do that? Like, tell me what I should do. And then someone goes, cheetahs are wild. It's like, okay, but what should I do? Like, do you think I should try an art class? Like, I just need practical tips. So a lot of this stuff gets like lost on me. I'm like, I'm out. I don't know like how this relates. And I think it resonates with a lot of people because people put whatever they want into it, and for it to mean whatever they already want it to do. But then again, like, what do you even need the self-help book for then? If you already know what you want, you're just asking the book for permission. Glennon Doyle doesn't need to give you permission. No one does. If you want to fucking leave your marriage and marry someone else, there's no one in the world stopping you necessarily, but like the current partner you have may not sign the papers. I don't know. But I think it's good to remember, like, yeah, this is fine, whatever, read the book. But you didn't need that book to take the steps in the first place. You could have skipped ahead 20 steps and go, you know what, I'm going to take responsibility. Kini, come here. Come here, everyone wants to see you. Okay, maybe she's coming. Anyways, let's skip ahead a little bit. That was the cheetah analogy. Okay, here at 23 minutes, she talks about her daughter. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. I don't mind it in this case. Like, it's not like a Heidi Powell saying her daughter has, like, you know, ringworm or whatever, like completely outs her. I don't mind this type of story about your kids in content too much. It doesn't bother me that much.
To recess, like, Marie, I'm not kidding you when I tell you that for months.
Okay, I just think she was a little mean. This is about her daughter liking polar bears. And her kind of analogy with this is sort of so funny and interesting in contrast to the cheetah story, because her daughter's like obsessed with polar bears. Well, she'll tell the story and I'll give my reaction.
Bulimia. I became bulimic when I was 10. And
okay, wait, go back. 1 second. So she said she was 10 in the TED Talk. It was 8. I just not to say that she's lying or something. That was sort of something I picked up on.
And I had all the big. And so I started numbing myself with bulimia. I became bulimic when I was 10. And I spent the next 25 years in a cage, trying to protect myself from my muchness, right? I was too much. Numb, food, booze, but all the things. And then I'm raising my little girl, right? And sometimes it just takes looking at the world through another person's eyes, especially a child, to forgive yourself and figure out who you really were. And she has so much. Big feelings, big all the things. She was, this is a good example of her. So when she was in kindergarten, her teacher called me and said, Glennon, we have an issue. And I was not shocked. She said, I just accidentally may have mentioned to the kids about global warming and that the polar bears were losing their homes. And she said the rest of the kids were sad about that, but able to soldier on to recess. She said, Tish is still sitting in the middle of the carpet. She keeps asking me questions about polar bears. She keeps asking who's gonna step up for the polar bears. Where's the polar bear's mom? I can't get her to go out to recess. Like, Marie, I am not kidding you when I tell you that for months our freaking family's life revolved around polar bears. We had polar bear posters on the wall. We adopted 4 freaking polar bears from Antarctica. I don't know if there's some website. It got so bad that at one point I asked my friend to please email me and pretend that she was the president of Antarctica and tell me that the polar bears were now in fact fine. Because I just couldn't take it anymore, this child. And so one night I'm getting ready to put Tish to bed and I'm walking out the door and I hear Mommy and I'm like, Jesus, no. And I go back and I say, what's wrong? And she says, it's the polar bears. And I said, oh, hell no. Hell no. And she said, Mommy, it's the polar bears now, but nobody cares. And so tomorrow it'll be us. And then that little brat fell asleep. And I was like, oh my God, the polar bear. Holy shit. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, oh my God. She's not crazy. She's a prophet, right?
Yes.
Like the sensitive freaking kids, basically her teacher just told her the world is ending.
Yes.
And then then is like, can you just like carry on? What I figured out is these.
I don't know. This one, I was like, to me, it seems like she was sort of making fun of the child. And it sounds like her kid has, I don't think she's a prophet necessarily, but I think she could be an activist. She seems to have dedication to a topic. She seems to be interested in science in some way, biology, climate change. Like she's sensitive maybe as a takeaway, but like I think that shows a lot of promise. And the fact that your kid is interested in like adopting a polar bear at like 9 years old or 6 years old, I think I'd be telling this story like, I am the proudest mom ever. This is the best. I'm 31, like I said, and I'm like adopting manatees. Like, you know, should I look at myself and go, shut the fuck up? No one wants to hear about the manatees. I thought that was kind of like a very positive thing. And I get like, you know, okay, we got to talk about other things, but it's kind of a cool hobby as opposed to, you know, I don't know, something else that might be more destructive or more, you know, concerned with like, I don't know, dancing or something like, oh, I gotta do the dance club and we gotta drive everywhere. I don't know. It just seems like out of the options, like polar bear obsession, probably good for me. I don't know. And then her reaction sort of like, oh my God, shut up. I couldn't like take it anymore. I just wanted her to be quiet. And then I thought like, oh, she's just sensitive. That's good, I guess. It's like, okay, I guess that's one way to look at it, but I'm not a mom. So maybe it just like gets to be too much, but I just thought it was a little bit of an odd take.
Sensitive souls, they're like standing on the bow of the Titanic going, iceberg, iceberg, and everybody else is like, we just want to keep dancing. Right? And like these sensitive souls in most cultures and throughout history have been identified as important to the culture. They're the shaman, they're the medicine men, they're the poets, they're the clergy. They're the ones that are a little different, a little eccentric, because they can see things that other people can't see, hear things that other people can't hear, feel things that other people can't feel. And so they are honored as weird, but crucial to the culture.
How are they weird?
Yes.
Am I biased? I'm like, that's not weird. That's like a very normal and thing we should try to normalize too, is like caring for animals. She literally wrote a book about being wild and like getting yourself out there into the wild. It's like polar bears in the wild? No one cares. No one cares about your fucking polar bears, child of mine. Like, okay. She's weird, but you know, she's a prophet, so it's fine. It's like, is it I don't know. I think she has a lot of takes that are personal to her and like personal preferences that are just not the worldview. But then again, maybe I'm the one with the more niche perspective and she's the one with like everyone else believes that. Maybe.
But our culture is just so hell-bent on efficiency that we call those people broken, like they did with me, instead of understanding that they are responding appropriately and importantly to a broken system.
Amen.
Right?
Who but you called her broken? I mean, the teacher at school maybe was like, oh, you know, she's interrupting the class now talking about polar bears. That's one thing. But I don't think, again, the world is going to label your daughter for caring about polar bears as broken. I could be wrong, but I just don't find that to be the real thing, the real message there. But anyways, okay, let's skip ahead to 42. I wrote down unrelatable. I'm not sure what the point was, but we'll find out. Let's see.
That frees other people to free themselves too, right?
Start there.
He said that while they were filming a show together, he poked his head.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait. Skipping ahead.
Speak in public. Folks are really afraid of criticism, afraid of the pushback that comes back. And I thought it was interesting. You wrote about that it's easier for the world to love a suffering woman than it is to love a joyful woman. And that someone stood up at an event that you were speaking at and just said, you know, I used to really be able to relate.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So someone talked to Glennon and said, I don't relate to you anymore because your life is so different than your first two books, which fair. I mean, yeah, obviously, like it is. If you fell in love with the woman telling you, hey, my husband cheated, but I'm going to make it work. And here's our redemption story. And that was your cup of tea. You're probably not going to like the third, like, not the sequel, but like, what do you call it? The throuple? I don't know. The throuple of it? The third edition where it's like, actually, never mind. We're divorced. I'm marrying someone else. I don't think, yeah, that's hard to retain that audience.
Someone stood up at an event that you were speaking at and just said, you know, I used to really be able to relate to you, and now I don't really relate to you anymore. I've heard versions of this. Like, I used to like you when you had the brick wall. I'm like, bitch, I'm growing. Like, do you know what? It's just...
Absolutely.
What was your experience of that?
Well, criticism comes in all kinds of forms to women, but I think in terms of women who are untaming, this is going to be the one that they get the most often. I was at an event recently, but it happens all the time recently, where a woman will stand up and say, you know, when you used to talk about suffering and pain and being miserable all the time, I related to you. But now, like, I don't know, ever since you married Abby, I find it harder and harder to relate to you. So I understand that. Okay, I was at my daughter's soccer game recently, and there was this girl on the other team. She was just rubbing all of us soccer moms the wrong way. I don't know. I was looking at my friends, and they're like, and I kind of felt this on the inside too.
Yeah.
And so I'm like now learning that my knee-jerk reaction is my conditioning.
Yeah.
It's important we can forgive ourselves for it, right? Our knee-jerk reaction is our conditioning. It's not our wild. So every time I have a bitchy response like that, I think, okay, what's going on here? So I'm watching her. This girl, she is walking around like she owns this field, right? The other annoying thing is she's on the other team and she's very good, right? And she doesn't even look like she's trying that hard. She's just like... And so I'm going through this annoying thing, and I'm thinking, oh my God, Glennon, she is 12. She is 12, and you don't like her because she's confident, right? So what's going on there is our conditioning, which is it's proven. We know after study that the more confident, successful, joyful a man becomes, the more people like and trust him. Mm. And it's a bell curve. The more joyful and successful and fierce and bold a woman becomes, the less we like and trust her.
I want to see the studies on that. I don't know. I hear this a lot, and probably a lot of you will be like, you have internalized misogyny and you are part of the patriarchy, and maybe that's true. But, I think sometimes maybe it's, but I don't like men or women who shove stuff down your throat. As much as I can criticize, I don't know, like a Kim Kardashian, I don't think... I'm trying to think of a male that I like. Kanye is allowed to do it, but Kim, no, absolutely not. Like, I just think just being boastful and being like, I'm so rich, look at my cars, look at my Grant Cardone. I see it exactly the same way as how I don't like him for doing what he does and flashing all his shit everywhere, or Ed Milet, or any of them that like, I'm so rich. Like, women or men, I don't like it. And I don't know what study is like. I hate women who are successful, but I love men who are successful. I want to see it because I find it just to be a character trait. And maybe it's the character trait that women take on as like, they have made it, so they show it off more, and that becomes like more annoying to people. Maybe, I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know, an assumption maybe on people. Okay, so that's like the interesting part of that. Let's read. Okay. By the way, this is just little notes I wrote down. She's really good friends with Elizabeth Gilbert. And the interesting part about that is that Elizabeth Gilbert wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And I don't know if it was part of Eat, Pray, Love or if it just happened afterwards, but similar to Glennon, the Elizabeth Gilbert woke up one day and, well, okay, there's more to it than that, but the generalized is she woke up one day and was like, I don't like my life. I don't like my husband. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to India. I'm going to go find myself. And she went off on this journey. Julia Roberts plays her in a movie about that experience. But then at the end or later on, she actually, I don't know if she marries, but she gets with one of her best friends, and they become romantically involved. Excuse me. And the woman ends up dying of like a disease. And that's her good friend. Not to say she copied her and followed her path or whatever. But it's interesting that they are friends and that their stories are similar in a lot of ways, in that way that, they were living this very conventional life, and then they go off and, get involved with women after not thinking that they were part of that community. It's interesting. Okay, what is this one? Okay, let's watch friend of the show. I haven't talked to her in a while, but she did very nicely ask in an email a while back if she could use some of my footage that I did about Rachel, and so she could compile her own video. Oops. Oh my goodness, come on, come on. Hold on, let me get the tarot situated. I gotta move the little cushion for her. Okay, now you got it. Come on. You're so You're so needy. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. We can't keep the people waiting. Okay. You just jump up when you're ready. Anyways, so she compiled this video. It's called Was Rachel Hollis's Divorce Caused by This Book? Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I think it's a great theory. Now she's very honest in it and doesn't like try to, you know, what's the word? I don't know, commercialize it or try to sensationalize. That's the word. She doesn't try to sensationalize and go like sort of more so how my style is like, here is the proof. Like that's me. She's much more calm about things. And this was posted 1 year ago, October 2021. So here we go. I think there's a lot of good theories, and I just love to bring it back to Rachel as per usual.
There's essays about her divorce, developing intuition, personalizing a relationship with God, co-parenting with her former partner, and various new age Tumblr-tinged perspectives on life and society. I'm not saying that Rachel's marriage fell apart because she read Untamed. I'm saying that after reading Untamed, a person contemplating major life challenges may be emboldened to embark on those scary and unpopular moves. Let's face it, public figures aren't issued guidebooks on how to live after they've become famous. Top-selling self-help books are as close as it gets to a how-to guide on how to navigate challenges with socially acceptable narratives to accompany those situations. Thinking about getting divorced? Here's a market-tested, socially acceptable way to wrap up that divorce and deploy it. And we know it works because it's part of a best-selling book. It has major endorsements by celebrities and most of America. I read this book so that you don't have to, but to be honest, I enjoyed this book. I thought that Glennon is a very talented writer. It was a quick read and pretty pleasant. In this video, I'm going to go over some of the highlights of the book, and then I'm going to tie that back to behaviors and actions that we've seen Rachel Hollis exhibit. And then I'm going to try to explain this book's role in society. I know that some of you are excited to get some juicy bits out of this, so I'm going to approach with some low-hanging fruit, or what I thought to be low-hanging fruit. Untamed was published on March 10th, 2020. One of the taglines throughout the book is, "We can do hard things." It's a motivational phrase that should embolden you to do difficult things, something Glennon says repeatedly throughout the course of the book. On April 1st,
and the name of the channel, I saw someone ask, the name of the channel is P.S. Julie. P as in Peter, S as in Sinbad. That's not the real, what do you call it? The real alphanumeric thing to say, but you get it. P.S. Julie. Postscript. Okay.
2020. Rachel posted to her
Here come the receipts. I love it.
Instagram a motivational graphic that featured "You can do hard things." It feels like an immediate callback. We know that by the end of May 2020, Rachel has received the book and she has read the book. So it's practical to think that if the book was published on March 10th, that Glennon's PR folk,
The only thing missing was Rachel Hollis putting her name on it at the bottom.
and herself could have delivered a copy to her friend Rachel before March 30th, 2020, which would inspire this type of post because, like I mentioned, "We can do hard things" is mentioned repeatedly throughout Untamed. I was immediately excited, but then I did a little bit more research, and it turns out that Rachel has actually shared this a lot, and that on January 20th, 2020, Rachel had shared "You can do hard things." It is possible that in conversations with Glennon, this type of thing had come up before.
So the caption here is, you can. Say it louder so that it drowns out the negative self-talk that tells you all of the reasons you should give up. When that voice taunts you to quit, smile and remind her, "I'm just getting started." Except when it comes to your marriage to Dave Hollis, that you can give up on. Because that comes up 6 months later-ish.
Or who knows? I thought it's funny that the top comment on this post from 25 weeks ago is, "You come across as a very shallow knockoff of Glennon Doyle, an ironic person to knock off. Practice what she preaches. Be your own gosh darn self, even if it doesn't make you money." So while it may
No.
not fit the chronology, it seems to me that Rachel already had this message internalized, but it could be that she read Untamed and it brought it back to the top for her. But 3 months prior to the March post in January, she was saying, you can do hard things. So that's kind of the most firm draw between the two of them. And I don't think we can really rule out what inspired what. I think it's funny that somebody else made that same conclusion. Some of you are saying, well, that's kind of a weak line to draw between the two of them. If that's your best example of Rachel directly citing Glennon.
The bar is so low for me. I'm like, yeah, I'm on board with you already. Your thesis is proven to be with that one post. But I like someone who has even more. So I'm on board.
Then I'm out of here. And that's why I brought it up. Because this video isn't going to me saying Rachel Hollis plagiarized Untamed. Because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people tend to have some reference that they're drawing from spiritually. And that in this instance, we can look at Untamed and understand where Rachel Hollis is basing her decisions. Because it appears to be the foundation for which she's justifying major changes in her life. So if you're hoping for direct passages lifted from Untamed in Rachel's life, you've come to the wrong place. I couldn't find it and I looked. What I'm saying instead is if you stick with me, if you stick to this video, you're going to get a little bit more understanding behind the justification and the philosophical reasoning that leads to some of the behaviors we see Rachel exhibit. One of the persistent themes of Untamed is that Glennon Doyle became in touch with herself and she directly confronted the cultural conditioning that she had received. In the chapter Let It Burn, she breaks down different cultural messages and why she's letting go of them and is no longer internalizing them as goals for herself. When it gets to the topic of marriage and divorce, Glennon has this to say. I quit buying the idea that a successful marriage is one that lasts till death, even if one or both spouses are dying inside it. I decided that before I ever vow myself to another person, I'd take this vow to myself. I'll not abandon myself, not ever again. This reprogramming of the cultural message is useful because it takes the onus of success in a marriage off of being together until death and instead puts the measurement of success in a marriage whether or not the individuals in the marriage are able to thrive in the confines of the marriage. The qualifier for whether or not the person should stay in the marriage shifts from am I alive to am I living. Rachel's divorce announcement signals the shift from thinking of a successful marriage being one that lasts until death to instead being one that ends when it's no longer beneficial to both parties. She says, we have worked endlessly.
Guys, this is the best divorce announcement I've ever seen. Okay, just to remind everybody, now that we're back on Rachel Hollis YouTube, this was the same exact open mouth selfie photo from Dave, at least, that she had posted like a week or two before, where they were like, we went there on our relationship podcast. We're talking about making out. Okay, then like a week too later, she posts the same exact photo with this caption. It's so iconic. It'll live in the museum of Rachel Hollisville lore forever. She points out a certain caption, but I like the first part too. Guys, I have some hard news to share, and the honest truth is I have no idea how someone announces something like this, so I'm just gonna say it. Dave and I made the incredibly difficult decision to end our marriage. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh about someone ending their marriage, but like the way that the first part, she like forgot that she was like so excited about it. Like, guys, I have the biggest, amazing announcement for you. I'm leaving Dave. And we all know that it was bullshit, right? Because now, with hindsight in our favor, we can see she's like, oh, he hurt me for years, and he was the worst, and I was so held back, and I didn't have sex, and I lied about everything. But this one, this is still fresh, kind of, from their divorce. So, so it's sort of like she was taking the route of like, we're just going to remain friends, which is kind of what Glennon actually has done and Rachel pretended to do, in my opinion.
Over the last 3 years to make this work and have come to the conclusion that it is healthier and more respectful for us to choose this as the end of our journey as a married couple. Both Glennon and Rachel are known as Christian authors, and Rachel and her husband gave seminars on how to make your marriage worth fighting for, celebrating, and Glennon wrote books about championing love in her own marriage. It takes quite the philosophical leap to go from this is till death do us part to it's till we're no longer living spiritually anymore. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. For the record, I think divorce is a great technology. These scenarios, I think, are great scenarios in which to pursue divorce. However, people in their target demographic may not agree with that. Philosophically, religiously, they shouldn't, because those are the religions that are...
I agree. Okay, so that was the hot tea. Okay, let's talk about this one now.
If your children are the passengers on the plane and they see you freaking out, what do you think they're going to do?
Okay, so, so this talking about kids.
You've been flying and living long enough to know that while turbulence feels scary, it won't take the plane down. Turbulence isn't deadly, and neither is divorce. We survive these things. The kids don't know this yet, so they are afraid. They are going to keep looking at your face for information. Your job right now is to smile at them, stay calm, and keep serving the freaking peanuts. So Glennon takes it upon herself to put on a brave face, model the courage, the optimism for her children. Rachel directly uses this type of language to describe how she is going to be modeling for her children during her divorce. She says, I want to be strong and bold and optimistic for you now, but every ounce of my energy is reserved in being those things for my children. Rachel is saying, I have to be the stewardess who is bold and optimistic so that the passengers on the plane are bold and optimistic, which is what Glennon said in the book. I'm not saying that the concept that...
And then if you listen to the stream or listen to the episode itself from the Skinny Confidential podcast, Rachel said, and this was after Toiletgate, after cancellation, everything, she was coming back to like get her redemption story, like... We're asking her all the questions. Yeah, okay. She said, I don't want to give advice to women anymore. That was something that people put on me as like what they thought I wanted to do. I just wanted to do fun shit or cool shit with cool people. That's been my goal and that's my mantra. But in that divorce announcement, she's like, I want to be here for you now. Like her audience. Like you're telling me that that was the persona that someone put on you, that wasn't your own take on things. It's just like rewriting history again. Okay, this is another one. I've talked about this one a lot on the channel about God being a she, and I didn't know Glennon was the one that, I don't know if she said it first or what, or if this is, I mean, like there's a literal song about it, like from Ariana Grande. So I don't know if the argument's who said it first, but it's interesting. Another thing that Rachel has used and Glennon has also used.
This next claim is what I believe to be a pretty firm backing that Rachel does see some validation in Glennon Doyle's writings, because this is something that Glennon goes to a length to defend in Untamed, which is that God is a she. She says, Glennon, you refer to God as a she. Why do you believe that God's a female? I don't. I think it's ridiculous to think of God as anything that could possibly be gendered. But as long as the expression of God as female is unimaginable to many, while to expression of God as male feels perfectly acceptable, and as long as women continue to be undervalued and abused and controlled here on earth, I'll keep using it. For the record, having grown up Roman Catholic in Catholic schools for the majority of my life, this concept isn't incredibly new. It is controversial. I've never heard a priest say it, but I've heard definitely friends' parents say that. I've heard classmates say that. It's in the water, so to speak.
I think she's so wholesome, this creator. It's in the water, so to speak. Yeah. I've never heard a priest say it. I think, most priests would be like, no, God is she. Amen. But I say, a woman. Woman fest that, okay? That's what the merch I want to do. A woman. Anyways, okay.
However, it's in the water with people who don't have any power. It's controversial. And another question, Julie, where is your proof that Rachel has said this? Well, I went looking for it myself, and we're gonna be playing the telephone game in this instance. So I am a big fan of the YouTube channel Kia's World, and Kia does a lot of research and coverage of Rachel Hollis. She recently virtually attended the Rise conference in, I believe, the beginning of September 2021, and this is what she had to say about Rachel referring to God as a she.
But dang, I'm in the same spot. I'm just actually twisted, and I have a green screen now. I'm actually in the same location as I was in this video. Look at that. Look at me. Have you seen anything as beautiful? But she said that, and then she also said that God is a she, and whatever her wisdom is, blah, blah, blah. So she stuck to her guns on that one, that God is a female. She's mentioned that a couple times in other podcasts and videos, but she said, again, on stage that, you know, God is a female.
In general, Kia's coverage of the Rise conference is great, so if you are interested in more of like a thorough run through of what happened, like definitely go watch that. Those were the most firm examples.
And then jump in the future, because I went in person to the Rachel Hollis podcast experience.
Of Rachel parroting the tenets, the main core philosophies from Glennon Doyle's Untamed. And now I want to talk a little bit more about the key points that she hasn't parroted that I think are integral to understanding how influential this is and why so many celebrities were like, this was a...
Okay, so that's interesting. And there is, okay, here is just to throw my own proof into the mix, my own receipts. This is Rachel and Glennon Doyle liked it, so... You know, but I think it's interesting that neither one has appeared on each other's podcasts at any point. So I think that is sort of telling of, like, I'm assuming Glennon is not a fan of Rachel or doesn't want to get involved with her, like the post. But I mean, this is pre-Toiletgate when Rachel posted this. But I'm sure Rachel would love to have Glennon on her podcast, if she's posting someone's book and not getting hashtag ad money for it. You know, I think she's doing it to try to like soften her up. But this is what Rachel says. I'm in love with this book. I'm halfway through and what is wrong with these people who don't finish the book, but then give a full endorsement of the book? Heidi did not read Dave's book at all and gave a glowing review. Oh, best book ever. Rachel's halfway through this book and is like, best book ever. It's like, okay, I get it, but whatever. I'm halfway through and pausing only long enough to tell you to stop everything you're doing and buy it and read it and cry and laugh and allow it to make you think. Glennon Doyle's new book, Untamed, is like if Girl Stop Apologizing had a wiser, cooler, more thoughtful best friend. So she's like, Glennon Doyle's basically me, same bloodline, just a little bit better because I'm going to be a humble queen. But like, just when you think of Untamed, think of me also, okay? I'm still in the family. Apologizing had a while. Okay. This conversation about women and how we're raised to fit neatly inside of everyone else's vision of who we should be is a truth we must keep telling. Actually, this is pre-divorce announcement. This is right before the divorce announcement. Holy shit. This is like a week before. They might have already talked about it. Wait, when is someone in the chat, please let me know. Someone knows it out there. When was Rachel and Dave's anniversary? Because that's the weekend of their wedding anniversary. No, of their wedding anniversary? It must be. Yeah, their wedding anniversary because they went on a trip. That's when she told him, I want a divorce. So if we can do the dates, that would be very interesting. Okay. Let's talk about let's talk about it so much that our generation begins to fight back against the expectations and limitations put on us by others. Let's talk about it so much that the next generation never needs books like this at all because it would never occur to them to be anything other than themselves. But then you wouldn't make money, Rachel, so how would you survive? Yeah, May 24th. Okay, let me just search it too because I know this is a delayed chat. Dave Hollis and Rachel Hollis get married? Okay, it just says May. But what day exactly? I guess I can look. Oh, come on. We can scroll back into infinity. Because they were on the cliffs in Ireland or Scotland or somewhere for their 1 anniversary. Because remember Dave posted the like anniversary and then he deleted it. And then he's like, I deleted it because we broke up. I felt stupid. And I was like, damn, relatable. And then it turned out that he wasn't relatable after all in the long run. In the short term, I was like, wow. In the long run, I was like, meow. Weird. Wait, okay. I'm scrolling. There's so many selfies with his mouth wide open and her doing that little like, Remember they had the whole photo shoot though? Okay, I'm sorry to get off topic from Glennon, but they had the whole photo shoot of them on the cliffs. Let's see. 2019. No, it would have been after that. And they were like, every year we renew our vows because we're more exceptional than you are. And we go to Europe to do it, okay? So don't think that we want to be relatable to your ass. Okay, wait. It's when she's crying, she's like, I hate him so much. I hate him more than anyone ever has hated. This big guy and I will be on Good Morning America to talk about his book. Hey, that's March. I'm getting there, guys. Guys, we're getting divorced. I'm getting there. Maybe she deleted it. Fuck. No, she deleted it. Unless it's on Dave's. That's a whole other thing. Okay, whatever. I need to know, like, what day. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. But it does? Does it matter? I don't know. Okay, let's continue on Glenda. I will be able to figure it out. Marriage anniversary, Dave Hollis. May 23rd. I see it on Dave's Facebook. May 23rd, everybody. And she posted the she posted the Glennon Doyle book on May 24th. Does that prove anything? The day she told Dave, she posted this post. What a revelation. How do we feel about this? Okay. Does this matter at all? But yeah. So it says this one. Oh, yeah, I'm not even showing you. I forgot. This says on May 23rd, as we left our wedding 14.9 years ago, we had so much fun that we committed to getting married every 5 years. The first time we exchanged vows, it was in Pismo Beach, blah, 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 blah. They love each other. They're made for more. Date your spouse, all the bullshit. And then 1 year later, she's posting, I'm leaving your ass. Anyways, we got it. Glennon is responsible. I'm on the same page as
they life change
as PS Julie. And yeah, shout out to PS Julie. I'm glad we finally got her featured on the channel. That was like one of my first videos that anyone was like, can I use footage or can I do? I was like, damn, this is cool. Yes, of course. And if you ever out there, people watching want to use footage from my channel, go for it. You don't have to ask me. Just take it and then tell me and I'll watch it and tell you if I think it's good or not. Okay. Let's see what else we got. I got a lot more notes about Glennon, but we don't have time for all of them. But let's see. Let's go down the rabbit hole. Let's read an article. We talked about the books. We talked about the ED stuff. we didn't talk much about Abby, but I don't know if we care a whole lot. Let's read her. The New Yorker did a post about her, and I think the New Yorker is a very good publication. You can see their home. Hold on. This is where I got this image from. Let's do a quick slideshow. Look through, shall we? How come all my browsers are like so misshapen? Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. This is just like random. This is like Architectural Digest, as Jane Leno would say, my Bible. This is their podcast studio. This is their bathroom. This is their kitchen and their dogs. This is another bathroom. It's a very interesting table. This is their bedroom. This is another room. Interesting. This is a side table. That is a nice ass view. That is self-help money views right there. That is like Jay Shetty level views. Living room, dining room, kitchen, shower. So if you ever feel bad, just keep this in mind. If you ever feel bad, like, oh, people are being critical, just remember they have a lot of stuff. And we all know that stuff is what's important in life. Okay. Here we go. The New Yorker. It's called The New Yorker, but it's actually very high-class journalism, I think. All right. Glennon Doyle's Honesty Gospel. This was written in February 15th and 2021. Okay. The best-selling memoirist wants women to tell the truth about their lives. Okay, here we go. Tarot's ready. On the morning before the presidential election, the author and activist Glennon Doyle was drinking coffee in bed, exhausted. For the past 40 days, she had led her 1.5 million Instagram followers, which is now 2 million, in taking an action day to disempower Trump, phone banking, exploring the details of absentee ballots, contributing to progressive candidacies, discussing civics with Elizabeth Warren, who told Doyle, "You, in a time of complete insanity, are a voice for reminding us we all have a center. We have a heart." Okay, I don't know. Is that really deserved? I think she's an author, but again, like I think it's being blown a little bit out of proportion about what she's actually doing. That's my hot take. I'm sorry. But that's not why she was tired. She hadn't stopped cleaning in days. Quote, "I did the house, then I did the garage, and then yesterday we moved to the storage unit," she said. Doyle's wife, the soccer legend Abby Wambach, who was stretched out next to her, added, "It sucks in the moment, but now I don't have to think about that storage unit ever again. And we're saving $433.99 a month." Doyle nodded and said, "Anxiety has fringe benefits." The frenzy of organizational activity had been a distraction from pre-election dread. "This is one of those just keep going moments," she continued, "like we're not going to feel any of the feelings. Let's just keep our little hearts frozen." Well, I will give her props here for taking a political stance. I think sometimes, including like a Rachel Hollis, of course, got to bring her into the fold again, that she, Rachel will say, I'm the biggest liberal you'll ever meet, but then never really talk about who she's voting for. She's always just like, just vote, which yes, of course, like fine. Like that's, the message is very safe. Go vote for whoever you want. You stay kind of apolitical, but I do think it does take some courage and bravery, built through courage to tell people who you're voting for as a public figure. So I will give her some credit. That's not easy. From Doyle, this is apostasy. She has a sticky note on her bathroom mirror that reads, "Feel it all." Okay, it's a little cheesy. In her most recent memoir, Untamed, she writes, "Every great spiritual teacher tells us the same story about humanity and pain. Don't avoid it. You need to evolve to become." During a Goop video chat in the early days of quarantine, Doyle advised Gwyneth Paltrow, "All feelings are for feeling." Red flag. Hold on. You're on Goop.
this situation is a red flag.
Goop is canceled. We hate Goop on this channel. And if you don't hate Goop, get out of this channel. You're not welcome here, okay?
I do not give a fuck.
I hate Goop. I do. You can like it and still stay. I'm just joking. But I don't like Goop. I'm not joking about that. Okay. Doyle, who is 44, has always espoused experiencing vividly all that is beautiful and brutal in the world. Life is brutiful, she wrote in her first book, Carry On Warrior. I did think that was a great line, and I hope she is the one who came up with it, because it is it's a very great line. Life is brutal. I think that's smart. And she wrote that in 2013. So she wrote that the year that she did that TEDx talk. Just keep that in mind. At the time, she was married to a man and Christian mommy blogger. Her least favorite, I don't know what this word is, sobriquet? I don't know what that is, was a pretty accurate description of her job. Her blog, Mom Mastery, offered readers a look at her life as a progressive Christian raising 3 children, which was intimate, unguarded, self-revealing. I found my thing, openness, she wrote. I decided that's what God wanted me to do. I was going to make people feel better about their insides by showing them mine. Okay. God, at least the version she had in mind back then, is not much of a presence in Untamed, but radical honesty is still focal. The book begins with the story of a trip to the zoo. Okay, we talked about that, about the taming of Tabitha. She imagines what the animal would tell her if it could talk. I feel restless and frustrated. I have this hunch that everything was supposed to be more beautiful than this. She'd sigh and say, I should be grateful. I have a good enough life here. It's crazy to long for what doesn't even exist. I'd say, Tabitha, you're not crazy. You are a goddamn cheetah. So, okay, this part is one part that I've heard a lot of people confused about, and I'm also confused about, is like, I know in her life, like going and doing this wild thing, like, you know, becoming a lesbian, or I don't know if she identifies as a lesbian, but marrying a woman, that was wild for her. But what does wild, like, what is it the wildest thing you can think of in your life? That's what you should do is the advice, or what? That's what I'm like sort of confused about. Like, okay, for her, this is, you know, her path, but how does it apply to other women? And why are women so inspired by reading this story? You know, I just wonder how it's applicable to most people. Each of Doyle's books has reached the top of the bestsellers list. Untamed has sold more than 2 million copies. After reading it, the singer Adele posted, "It's as if I just flew into my body for the very first time." I think also, and there's an article about Adele, like Adele is like a super Glennon Doyle fan. Adele also got divorced. I wonder if these books are pushing women to maybe take the leap that they're already wanting to, or it's given them the idea like, you know, you can just divorce these guys. Look what I did. And they're like, wow. Oprah Winfrey called Doyle one of the awakened leaders who are using their voices and talent to elevate humanity. I think that's, I don't know. It just seems a little bit dramatic, maybe. Like that just, like she's not hurting anybody, I don't think. But I don't think she's elevating humanity by talking about her own life. People do that all the time, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm being mean. Okay. Then she says, the Biden campaign sought Doyle's help reaching suburban women. Glennon is their knight in shining armor, a campaign staffer said. Doyle's books aren't memoirs of extraordinary experience. Okay, Doyle's books aren't memoirs of extraordinary experience. She is not a Kenyan American who goes on to become president, or the daughter of a flamboyant con artist, or a survivor of a wrenching immigration. But Doyle, who sometimes refers to herself as a clinically depressed motivational speaker, has a knack for distilling wisdom from seemingly incompatible sources. Radical feminism. I don't think she's a radical feminist. I think she could be a feminist. I don't think radical feminism describes her, but I could be wrong. Evangelical Christianity, 12-step programs. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Pima Chondrin? I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. Into an easy drinking blend. Everything will be better, she suggests, if you just tell the truth about yourself. Between Doyle's first book and her third, her truth has changed considerably. Fair. Carry On Warrior honors women committed to slogging through the muck of domesticity being domestic, I'm assuming. Untamed argues that if women would just gnaw their way out of the cages of societal expectation, they'd be goddamn cheetahs. My worldview is, of course, you should be changing, but it's become clear to me that that's not everybody's worldview, she told me. Some of the criticism I've read about Untamed is, does the fact that she's so different in this book mean that her other books were lies? That was also my question. Fair question, I think. Not many writers have more than one memoir in them, but Doyle has had more than one life. To write a new book, she told me, I always feel like I have to become a new person. This is something that she says in one of the interviews that I listened to. She's like, men can write 1 million books, but when it's a woman writing 3 books or 3 memoirs, they make a big deal about it. It's like, I don't think all men or a lot of men write 20 memoirs. I think men and women can write a lot of books on different subjects or different stories. I think she is unique in the sense of she wrote 3 memoirs about herself at a fairly young age. She's only 46. Years ago, other than Rachel Hollis, she's the other one that wrote 3 memoirs essentially about herself. Years ago, at one of Doyle's readings, a reporter approached her father and said, "You must be so proud of your daughter." Doyle's father, a middle school principal and football coach, replied, "Honestly, we're just happy she's not in jail." Okay. Before she was a lesbian or a Christian or an author or an influencer, Doyle had a different incarnation, one that is crucial to her canon, the fuck up. Okay, this is where I think maybe I haven't read this yet, so I'm interested to hear more about the family life, because I think her extreme reaction to her childhood seems like there's more to it than just like, everyone goes through this, right? This everyday bulimia. It's like, I think this is unique to you. Growing up in Burke, Virginia, a suburb of Washington, D.C., Doyle was admired for her looks. Quote, "She is such a beautiful child," strangers say to my mother daily, Doyle wrote in Love Warrior, her second memoir. "I have to learn what to do because beauty is a responsibility." Okay. At 10 years old, she started binging and purging. Okay, so this is 10 years old again. So the 8-year-old story is done, gone. It's back, now it's 10 still. Each night I would, okay, trigger warning again, just going into graphic detail. Each night I bring 2 cups to bed with me, one filled with food and one to fill with vomit. I leave the cups underneath my bed, and their stench is a constant reminder to all of us that I'm not better. Wow. Okay. So her family must have known something was going on, I would imagine. Oh, she was Catholic? Oh my God. This is so eye-opening. Okay, we should have read this first. What were we doing? What was I doing? Sorry. Okay. Doyle was raised in a Catholic family that valued service and humility. A poster in her father's office said, "Don't get too proud. The size of your funeral will likely depend on the weather." I mean, I hate to be like, yo, that was pretty good, but I sort of align with that very much. I never heard that before. That's funny. She describes herself as loved and unhurt, but still desperately out of place on planet Earth. After nearly a decade of battling bulimia, she entered a psychiatric hospital during her senior year of high school. Quote, "For the first time in my life, I found myself in a world that made sense to me," Doyle said at a TED Talk. Okay, this is incorrect. TEDx Talk in 2013. In the mental hospital, there was no pretending. The jig was up. But the suffering was not. While attending James Madison University, Doyle found camaraderie in her sickness. "There are so many openly bulimic women in my sorority that there is an announcement one afternoon," she writes. "When you throw up, please flush the toilets. It looks bad when people come to the house and there's puke everywhere." Okay, that's not good. She began drinking ferociously at frat parties where there were signs on the wall that said "No fat chicks." Okay, I never saw stuff like that, but I definitely believe that that was there at that time, and probably were the places that I wasn't invited to in college. That seemed to be the vibe of frat houses. "There, I can drink myself into a stupor and be carried to bed to have sex that I will not remember." When she was not attending these festivals of misogyny and dissipation, oh my God, I need to go back to school. She was preparing for them. "The process begins at around 4 o'clock when I'm steady enough to get out of bed and begin drinking again," she writes. Then I dry off and gather my tools, hairdryer, straightener, makeup, stilettos, tube top, short skirts, more beer, and begin the hard work of transforming myself from a sick mess into my shiny, beautiful, bulletproof rep. She means this in the sense of sales rep. After Doyle graduated, she became a third grade teacher. I'm shocked at someone that has that much going on, and she says every day she's drinking all that can graduate, but good for her. She loved her students, but every day after class, she drove to the store for 2 huge bottles of wine. One weekend at a bar crawl in Washington, D.C., Doyle was introduced to Craig Melton, a high school classmate. Okay. He was, she recalled, a star soccer player. She recalled, a star soccer player with all the wholesomeness and goldenness that soccer coaches require or create. Doyle has a thing about soccer players, yeah. Her current wife is also a soccer player. He was also handsome enough to work as a model. They became drinking buddies and lovers, and 4 months later, Doyle had an abortion. Oh, shit. I didn't know that. Wait, what? Wait, is that a different? Okay, that's different than the other time then. Interesting. Okay. Is everyone okay, by the way? Sorry. Sorry, everybody. This is pretty detailed, but I like the detail because I'm learning a lot actually in this one, but it's very graphic, so I apologize. After that night, I don't stop drinking often enough to maintain a life, she writes. She missed work. She abandoned her car while on a bender. She was arrested only 5 times. Damn, she was arrested 5 times? Wow, okay. For what, DUI? On Mother's Day 2002, she discovered that she was pregnant again. Oh, okay, she didn't mention that in the first one, but I guess not relevant. But this time she had a revelation. I am a drunk. I am a bulimic. I cannot love a child because all I do is hurt the people I love. I cannot teach someone else how to live because I am only half alive. There's no one on earth, including me, who'd consider me worthy of motherhood. And yet, as I stare at the little blue cross, it is impossible for me to deny that someone decided I was worthy, she writes. I decide to believe in a God who believes in a girl like me. See, I like the description of this much better than the TEDx talk. This is much more honest, I think. This marked the emergence of Doyle's second literary iteration, The Believer. She believed in matrimony. She believed in motherhood. She and Melton got married and had a son, Chase. 2 more children followed quickly, both of them girls, until they tell me otherwise, as Doyle puts it these days. I like that. She believed in a loving, forgiving, Mary-centered vision of Christianity, and in her 12-step program, both of which emphasized surrender. Perhaps above all else, she believed in integrity. I wanted to be perfect because I had spent my whole life pissing people off and disappointing people and making people very, very, very sad, she told me. She sought redemption through conventional channels. I'll start going to church and I'll marry this guy and I'll quit my job and I'll stay home and figure out how to make baskets out of paper. But with 3 small children, it was difficult to get to 12-step meetings, and so she lost her sole outlet for expression. It is this avatar of Doyle's, the housebound warrior carrying on, who started regularly emailing friends her impassioned, essayistic impressions of life. I was just dying for a place to tell the truth, she said. I would send them the emails and then I would check up. Did you have any time to think about the things that I was talking about? But they were at work. It's funny. Eventually, one of her friends responded with a link to a tutorial on how to start a blog. Doyle began getting up at 4:30. Oh, she got up at 4:30, everybody. Hold on.
Most people won't get up at 4 a.m.
Damn, Rachel, you got competition. But, I mean, she's at 4:30, so Rachel's at 4. So Doyle is still slacking. Doyle began getting up at 4:30 to write before her children were out of bed. Same exact story as Rachel. She told stories from her darkest days or made extended metaphors out of the mundane experiences of motherhood. One of the first posts to go viral was "Don't Carpe Diem," about the impossibility of savoring every second of her children's lives. I'd be at Target or wherever, and one of my kids would be breaking down, and some older woman would come over and say, "Every precious minute goes so fast," Doyle recalled. Quote, "and I never had a moment feel longer." Threaded through her writing were slogans and terms that she coined and often capitalized to soothe and inspire her readers, a technique borrowed from her football coach father, which was later reinforced by church and by AA. Doyle has retained this habit in Untamed. She refers to the process of finding profound truths and intuition as the knowing. Momastry drew an overwhelming response from predominantly white Christian female readers who saw their secret selves reflected in Doyle's work. Carry On Warrior, built around her most popular blog posts, was a celebration of persistence in marriage, of the grace to be found in domestic routine. Just as the galleys were going to press, Doyle learned that her husband had been having one-night stands for more than a decade. Oh my God. While I've been home changing diapers, doing dishes, and feeding our children, he's been sleeping with other women, she wrote later. While I've been apologizing for my inability to connect during sex, he's been connecting with strangers. Yikes, that is hard. That is very tough to find that out. I thought it was like once. 10 years worth of cheating? That's not good. If this revelation undermined Doyle's first book, it provided the foundation of her second. Love Warrior is the story of how Doyle reconfigured her marital crisis as an opportunity for transformation. The invitation in this pain is the possibility of discovering who I really am, she wrote. Death and resurrection. Maybe that's just the way of life and love. Oprah Winfrey selected Love Warrior for her book club, and Doyle's publisher braced for a marriage redemption blockbuster. Once again, though, the release of a book coincided with a life-altering experience. At a publishing event, she met Wambach, a two-time Olympic gold medalist and a World Cup champion who was promoting her own memoir. Suddenly, a woman is standing where nothingness used to be. She takes up the entire doorway, the entire room, the entire universe, Doyle wrote. I stare at her and take inventory of my entire life. My whole being says, there she is. And then they were stuck, feeling all the feelings from opposite coasts in two separate marriages. Okay, so there's the confirmation that they are both in marriages, separated. Well, they were separated in the sense of they weren't, Abby and Glennon were not together immediately, but they met, they were both in marriages, and then they had to figure out how to be together. Again, I just find this story to be outlandish and magical thinking-esque, but I think it's their truth. I just think it's like something that you can't hang your hat on, if that makes sense, of like longevity. But I don't believe she's lying. I think she's telling the truth, but I just was like, oh, maybe that's like, lust versus like, oh, this is the one. I just don't know if that exists. It was brutal, Doyle said one afternoon when she and Wambach were sitting in the bright living room of their house in Naples, Florida. There were palm trees out by the pool. Inside, the furniture was modern and mostly white, and on the wall were paintings by an artist from Wambach's native Rochester, caricatures of Bob Dylan and Philip Seymour Hoffman, two famous shapeshifters. I thought, this is my one shot at happiness, Doyle continued, and I will never be able to take it. Like, I don't think that's a good feeling either, and not necessarily true. Like, oh, if you don't make it work with this random woman that you find yourself meeting, that's your only chance at happiness, that seems a little narrow viewed and for someone who's untamed to think. Their first emails were about recovery. Wambach was 1 month sober after a DUI that made headlines. Oh my God, 1 month?
This situation is a red flag.
Not that she, that's good. 1 month is great, but that you're not probably fully out of the court system yet. You're probably not, you're probably still reeling from the repercussions of that, I would imagine. So that's sort of like a vulnerable place to be meeting someone to leave your relationship for, but okay. Quote, my face was on the ESPN ticker for a whole week, Wambach said ruefully. That public shaming just knocked it right out of me. She was living in Portland, Oregon, and was in the process of separating from her wife, Sarah Huffman, a former teammate on the WNY Flash. The two were celebrated for exchanging a passionate kiss in the stands following Wambach's win at the Women's World Cup in 2015, a moment of public pride just a week after a Supreme Court ruling effectively legalized marriage equality. Doyle had never kissed a woman before. At first, Wambach said, I was protecting myself on a soul level because they never leave the family, straight woman. They never leave the man, like for me. Have you been down this road before? But Doyle's background turned out to be an advantage. When Glennon started to talk Jesus and Christianity to my mother, Wambach continued, Mom was kind of taken aback that, this person knows more about this subject than I have basically been using as the reason why my daughter should not be with women. Doyle does not like to label her sexuality. On Instagram this fall, she posted a photo of a new haircut and wrote, "I like it short and unruly and wild and not so straight, just like me." In her living room, she asked, "Who's the boss of what's a lesbian and what's bisexual?" I do not feel like I was hiding something for my whole life. I really understand why the Born This Way narrative is important to so many people, but to me, it smacks of guilt and shame. It's like, oh, I would be straight if I could, but I can't. Can you imagine if we had that in the civil rights movement? If black people were like, I would be white if I could? I mean, I don't think that, okay, that's sort of a weird take. I think the sentiment of, you know, I would be straight if I could is because that's what at the time was most socially acceptable. So of course you would like to be socially accepted by your peers and not be bullied and killed at some points. So I think it's not like about like, oh, I was born gay. Oh God, what an inconvenience. It's like you want the respect and the chance at a happy life. You know, until recently, even now, you still don't necessarily have the full chance to have that if you're a member of the community. So it's sort of like to me, an ignorant take. But what do you think? Okay. Doyle wears a gold pendant of Mary on her neck, and she played with it with her manicured fingers as she spoke. I have been in and out of Christian circles for so long that I know all of that culture, that language, she said. It's all semantics. Abby talks about leadership with the team, and to me it means the exact same thing as what I talk about in terms of faith. When I say that I'm obsessed about Jesus, what I love so much is the idea of showing up for the world in a way that is sacrificial. Wambach was that kind of leader, Doyle said, much more than she was, I'm not my favorite kind of person. I don't get that. In Doyle's defense, Wambach suggests that, in effect, the political is personal. Because of her size, because of her gender, because of her pretty face, in order to get her way, she has to go into an alternative mode. Otherwise, she'll be walked over and talked over and never get things done. Listen, it's not like I'm walking around shooting people, Doyle said. I'm a good and kind person. I don't know if I'm nice. Would you say I'm nice? I think you are in your heart, Wambach replied, which made them both laugh. I have to remember that you have clinical anxiety, right? And it's not fair for me to be like, why don't you respond nicer? So it forces me to be emotionally intelligent. Is that fair? I think I don't necessarily anymore at least have clinical anxiety, but I don't think I would want someone to excuse my meanness for, you can't say anything about it because you have clinical anxiety. Oh, sorry. Wambach. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. Wambach. I'll change it. See, Doyle said, she's my favorite kind of person. Doyle and Wambach. Doyle and Wambach are the embodiment of what straight women have in mind when they say that it would be so much easier to be in love with another woman. What? Wait. Doyle and Wambach are the embodiment of what straight women have in mind when they say that it would be so much easier to be in love with another woman. Who says that? Is that a thing that people say? Okay. They exist in what Doyle calls a forever conversation, the way I always dreamed it could be. At this point, their relationship provides as much fodder for Doyle's work as motherhood and spirituality do. Yeah, I don't totally love that. Like, oh, my relationship can now just become monetized content, which in these cases, you're a memoirist, you're a self-help person. It happens. That is what it is. You're signing up for that. So Wambach doing that and marrying her, she sort of is signing up for that, knowing that she's already an established person sharing parts of her life. I just feel like it's like, I don't know. I don't think that's good for you as a person. I mean, it's good for her bank account, but again, I don't know. I don't think long-term in the future, in 100 years, that we need people selling their life stories for money, but whatever. Okay. Whenever they find themselves on the verge of a certain kind of interaction, one of them whips out a phone to record it. Yeah, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I just think all of this, like if I was in this type of relationship where you're both influencers or like one person's got a huge following, you're the partner and they're recording you and all that, same thing with the Heidi Powell stuff and your kids, like, or you're a vlogger family. What is real life and what is, ooh, I know this will do well on social. I know my way of being, like, ooh, my reaction, what I say here will get a good like ratio, a good engagement on social media versus this is how I would be if the cameras were off. I don't think it's like almost like what they say when they say the theory of like observation, where it's like, you know, even cells, they know that they're, what do they call it? Oh my God, I sound like a crazy person. They're like a cell knows when it's being observed and it changes the makeup of it or whatever. I think the same is true for people who know they're going to be recorded and possibly posted on social media. You can't help it. Even if you think like, I'm just the same. I don't think you can prove that. I think you change your behavior, whether you know it or not, to suit you knowing you being recorded. Doyle and Wombach are the embodiment. Oh wait, I already read that. Okay. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, where is it? Oh yeah, they whip out the phone. Okay. Whenever they find themselves on the verge of a certain kind of interaction, one of them whips out a phone to record it. You know, when you're like, oh, here we go again. Each of us knows when it's coming, and this is part of our online story. Ooh, I don't like that at all. They have been approached about doing a television series. Probably once a week for the last 4 years, some network has written to us begging for us to do a reality show. And never ever in a million gazillion years would we. Good. We do a slice of that, but all on our own terms. Reality television relies on people acting out. Wambach and Doyle are done with all that. They prefer Instagram. They prefer Instagram, where people go to see something they can aspire to. Okay, I mean, sure. It's somewhat better, maybe, but maybe not, actually. I mean, they have control of it. That's the difference and the good part, but I don't know. Initially, Doyle was told that admitting she'd fallen in love with Wambach just as she was about to go on tour promoting Love Warrior would be career suicide. There is fear and panic, she posted on Momistry. And the advice from many is wait, G. Just wait till after the book has launched to reveal this. This is a marriage book. You can't break up before it even comes out. But she explained to her readers, I was not called to be successful. I was called to be faithful. I was called to be faithful to truth and vulnerability and to you. I mean, it is, again, kind of sort of badass to be like, I mean, it's a place of privilege to go, I don't need to worry about making money from this book. I can just, you know, take my risk and do what I want. But it is still a bravery, I think, again, in that way. Every weekday morning at 9, Doyle has a Zoom meeting with her team back in Virginia. Dinah Cabana, who is in charge of events and operations, Allison Scott, who handles graphic design, and Doyle's sister Amanda, whom she describes as the boss of me. Glennon thinks in colors, Amanda, a lawyer, said. I think in spreadsheets. One morning, the four women were discussing Doyle's recent appearance on Hillary Clinton's podcast. Hillary Clinton has a podcast? I mean, I'm not surprised, but what is it called? Hillary on the Hill, which they intended to promote on her social media platforms. She said, I really need you to call me Hillary. And I was like, I really need you to have a different request of me, Doyle said. I can't even call my 8th grade civics teacher Tina. But she's doing that for likability, right? Amanda asked. No, we had a really beautiful conversation and she was really vulnerable and precious. And it was like a moment. Doyle, yeah, but she wants to get elected. So, well, I don't know what time frame, but I'm sure she wanted to get elected. So that's not, you know, you're still promoting yourself, whether you know, are admitting that or not, I think. She was wonderful. Yeah, of course she was wonderful. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Doyle was concerned about how her followers might respond to Clinton's podcast. I was up at 2 a.m. thinking about this, she said. When we post it, I want to be a completely safe space for her. I want this to be a completely safe space for her. Like if one person says one freaking thing, that will be 100%. That will 100% happen, Amanda said, nodding vigorously. Less so on Instagram, but on Facebook, you might want to consider just turning off the comments. This would be a big step in the Doyle sphere. Doyle sphere. She considers the back and forth with her readers sacrosanct. I'm always amazed by my friends who are writers online who say, "Why are you reading comments?" she told me. It's like that is half the thing. For Doyle, who has written, "I love people, but not in person," the internet provides an ideal medium. Online, the exchanges are immediate, and building fellowship can seem effortless. Publishing, by contrast, feels to her like idea generation and molasses. She communicates with her readers almost daily in tones as intimate as if she were talking to dear friends. Oh, dear friends, again. She often begins videos by saying, "Hello, loves." Yeah, I don't like that. That's very parasocial, but you know, at least she's saying, well, let's read on what she says. A habitual sign off is, "I love us." What? I love us? Okay. All right. And the third parasocial thing, or if she's responding to something bad, "We will get through this together like we always have." Okay. Yeah, that's very parasocial. Don't love that. "I just feel so indebted to them," Doyle told me. "It feels like a very good use of my life and time to keep guiding my little community because they actually can make change." She and Amanda started the nonprofit Together Rising in 2012, and since then have raised more than $28 million for causes that have gripped Doyle's followers: Syrian refugees, children separated from their parents at the border, excuse me, incarcerated Black mothers who can't afford to post bail, a single mom who needs breast cancer treatment. A mantra of the organization is transform your heartache into action. In their living room, Wambach suggests that this idea had a persistent place in their lives. "You see something wrong, you feel it," she told Doyle. "Like you're in bed for 2 days when kids are getting locked up in cages. And I'm like, where's my wife? And then one day I wake up and you're out of bed. You've got an easel and you're ready to take down the whole system." In addiction recovery, the Serenity Prayer encourages people to change what they can and accept what they can't. Doyle has reevaluated where that line is. If you abide by her catchphrase and feel everything, you may well find yourself moved by the suffering of others. Another of her catchphrases might inspire you to work against it. "We can do hard things." Doyle came across the maxim when she taught 3rd grade, noticing it on a sign in another teacher's classroom. Since she started using it in her writing, it has resonated broadly. After Biden won the presidency, his campaign manager tweeted, "We can do hard things." And you just did. Addressing Congress. Wow, that's kind of cool. Addressing Congress after the siege of the Capitol, Chuck Schumer said, "In America, we do hard things." I mean, but she didn't come up with it, you know, I guess, if it was already on a poster board when she was a 3rd grade teacher. So it's less impressive now, I guess. Obviously, "we can do hard things" is not something you can copyright trade, but I don't know. I wonder where that, so if I just started saying like, "We can do tough activities," like, would that be now forever attributed to me from then on? It's interesting. A flurry of comments erupted online. An Instagram follower of Doyle's commented, "Schumer is untamed." Another wrote, "I might have started crying," to which Doyle responded, "Me too." There were a great many cheetah emojis. As the conversation continued, Doyle offered a comforting wish. "Just an idea for us. Maybe we all go to bed a little early to extra prepare us for whatever comes tomorrow. I love us. We can do hard things." Doyle's good friend Elizabeth Gilbert, who also rose to fame with a memoir about self-actualization and who addresses her followers as dear ones online, another parasocial, explained the connection. "I don't want to pathologize, but we might have some teensy boundary issues and some history of not being able to tell where I end and the other person begins," she said. Gilbert defended the relationship as real, though. "People will say, 'I feel like I know you,' and what I tend to say to them is, 'Well, you do. That's not an insane thing for you to think. I've quite literally told you everything,' she added. 'If you've come this far with me in my, I hate the word, journey, and you've stuck with me, then I kind of know you too." Okay, how? I kind of know you too? No, you don't. Stop this nonsense. Like, it's just I shouldn't say just to. It's not real. Like, you know what they want you to know and what is edited down and what a publisher has decided is appropriate for publishing. And there is an element of this needs to sell. You can't and you shouldn't put your entire life into a customer's head. So you don't know them. There's no back and forth much. And even if there is, there's not let's say you have 1 million followers and 1 million fans, like you don't have the bandwidth to be able to get to know 1 million people. So it's just silliness. Okay, we're almost done. Thank you for sticking around. Doyle has, of course, become another kind of believer now, the social justice warrior. Untamed consists of 65 chapters, each with a staccato title: Racists, Girl Gods, Sandcastles, Blowjobs, and each told swiftly enough to be shared on Facebook. I think one of the reasons Untamed did so well is because the chapters are short and people could handle it with their traumatized COVID brains, Doyle told me. Okay. Her stories function as parables, offering reassurance and implicit advice for good life. See, this is the part where I believe it's fair to say she's self-help. Good advice, implicit advice for a good life. That to me jumps into the pool of self-help. Defy the patriarchy, stand against white supremacy, honor your intuition. If like AA slogans or catechism, Doyle's shibboleths are simplistic. They are also a kind of lifeline for many. Something you always hear in 12-step rooms is that religion is for people who are afraid of going to hell, and spirituality is for people who have already been there, Gilbert said. Most of the people who follow both of us have been to hell or are in it. Adrienne Elrod, who was the Biden campaign manager, that lady, who was the Biden campaign's director of surrogate strategy and operations, reached out to Doyle after taking an informal poll of women she knew, asking whose endorsement would influence them most. It was mind-blowing, Elrod said. Didn't matter if you were a friend I went to high school with in Arkansas who never got a degree, or my sorority sister who's a suburban mom living outside of Dallas. Glennon Doyle, they hang on her every word. Many weren't even Democrats, Elrod said. They just trusted Doyle. Most of them are politically agnostic. Maybe they even have Fox News on every morning. They are in their 40s. The kids are about to go to college. A lot of them are stay-at-home moms or are working in jobs they don't love, and they feel like we need someone to tell us what the meaning of life is and give us reassurance that we're more than just moms. That seems to be the hugest thing ever. Like all these self-help people, that's the thing that resonates the most with them. That women need to be told and need that permission to feel like it's okay that they're more than moms. I'm not a mom, but I find that to be surprising. I thought that every mom that was these days, and maybe because in my generation, so I'm 31, millennial, like I think it's a little different. Like none of my friends have children essentially, like none of my close, in-person friends. And not that they don't want them, they're not meeting people and it's harder now, and COVID and everything too didn't help. But no one, I think, like the people who haven't had kids for the most part are choosing not to because they want to be more than moms, so they're just not having kids. I'm sort of surprised to hear that so many women of an older age were moms and thought like that's all I can be. It's interesting. I don't know how to feel about it necessarily, but yeah. And thank you, Rebecca Romana. Thank you so much. Okay. Rebecca says, hi, Kia. Sorry I've been MIA. 19 credits while working is kicking my butt. I can't believe you would do that. Good for you. That's crazy. 19? Yikes. Okay. Need you to know I talked about parasocial relationships with influencers in my essay about FDR's fireside chats. Hey, you go, girl.
I'm probably going to misquote it.
But your parasocial relationship with me is very...
You are privileged AF.
You're privileged AF to have this parasocial relationship.
Get your hearts ready.
Who are you having a parasocial relationship with?
Me.
And guess what?
I do not give a fuck.
I'm just kidding. But actually...
Unfollow me.
I'm just kidding. Thanks, Rebecca. And I got to play Rebecca's favorite and most... custom song for her. Okay, this is one that goes directly out to Rebecca Romana. Oh, hold on. Stand by.
You are gonna marry Dave Hollis.
You have a better chance now because I think, and most people are speculating that Dave is now a single man. So this is your chance. Make sure to check the bathroom.
He's always in the bathroom.
Thanks, Rebecca. Okay. And good luck on your exams probably coming up soon. That's like a lot of exams to study for. All right. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to kind of think back and go, wow, like we really haven't come that far as I think we have, or I can be in my bubble and go, doesn't everyone think that, you don't have to have kids to have a fulfilling life anymore? But it really is true. You're right. Like I live in a pretty progressive, I shouldn't say state, but city in a sort of, depending on what city you're in, could be liberal state, but is currently conservative. And I tend to run in circles that are more liberal and progressive and accepting. So I sort of forget that that's not the norm necessarily. Though Doyle sees herself as a leader, she bristles at the term guru, which the media often applies to her, including this title and thumbnail. I earn trust from these people hearing about their everyday needs, and I'm endlessly fascinated by that. How to deal with our emotions and relationships, that's my jam, she said. A guru is someone who's getting people to follow them. Yes, but you're getting people to follow you. I'm trying to get people to feel more activated in their own lives. Yeah, but that's what every guru tells you, so I don't buy it. I don't think she likes the word guru, just like people don't like the word influencer, but that's exactly what they're doing, and they just don't like to be labeled because it tends to have a negative tinge on the word, but they're still doing exactly all the things that those words are characterized under. Anyways, we're almost at the end. After Carry On Warrior, Doyle contemplated a career as a minister and was accepted to Chicago Theological Seminary. But I was talking to my 8th grade civics teacher, Mrs. Yallen, this ridiculously fiery Jewish woman who taught me everything about being involved with democracy. She said, and she was like, you already have a church. It just doesn't have walls. Oh, interesting. Doyle isn't even sure she identifies as a Christian anymore. Sometimes I look back on the Christianese I used to use and I can't even recognize it, she said. But there's a lot about the actual biblical character Jesus that I'm obsessed with, she added. If I were going to write a story now about what love would do if it walked around on earth, I would make it a baby from the most oppressed, most marginalized group. I would make Jesus like a transgender black woman. Wait, hold on. What? Okay, hold on. All right. If I were going to write a story now about what love would do if it walked around on earth, I would make it a baby from the most oppressed, most marginalized group. I would make Jesus like a transgender black woman. Okay, I guess I get what she's saying, but it's like borderline sort of, maybe it's not offensive to me as a white woman necessarily, but I feel a little of the ick reading it. For every reader who has been put off by Doyle's evolution, there are many more who have been entranced by it. Her online following has doubled since the publication of Untamed. When she fell in love with Abby, it's not like her audience defected, the author and activist Luvi Ayaya Jones said. She and Doyle became friends about 4 years ago. She still had this really big evangelical audience then. She represented the woman who believed in God in a way that was palatable to them. But then she started speaking truth to power, and they're like, oh shoot, I came here for one thing, but I'm going to stay for the another thing. After the murder of George Floyd, Ayaya Jones and Doyle collaborated with the Netflix executive Bozoma St. John on the Instagram campaign called Share the Mic Now, in which white celebrities handed their social media accounts over to black women. That's cool. Okay, good. In my opinion, good, I think. That sounds good to me. Doyle thinks that her community is there to be decent together in the same place at the same time. It's like what people like about church, she said. During quarantine, people have turned online for connection, a sense of belonging. Doyle has been getting those things out of a computer for years. At a time in her life when she felt lonely and isolated, the people who commented on her blog posts gave her solace. She contemplated this phenomenon in Love Warrior and concluded that it was her ex-husband, that she and her ex-husband had something in common. They were not so different, the blogger and the adulterer. Through strangers on a screen, I found the intimacy I yearned for. We both have. Interesting. Running errands one afternoon, Wambach ordered a strawberry milkshake. Doyle did not. Back home, Doyle put the milkshake in the fridge for Wambach, who returned to find it reduced by a third. I saw you grab it, and I knew what was going to happen, Wambach told Doyle. It just settled, Doyle replied, unconvincingly pacing their kitchen. Wambach asked, do you think that there will ever be a time when you can just order your own? Doyle shook her head, then tried another tack. That milkshake was freaking $13. Who orders a $13 milkshake, Wambach? Oh, sorry. Who orders a $13 milkshake? Wambach, who was filming the interaction on her phone, was outraged. Okay, see, now that it's on the phone, I'm out. I'm not as interested because it's like, okay, this is some sort of like skit they're putting together and calling it real. Wambach, who was filming the interaction on her phone, was outraged. I do, she said. Guess what? I get to do whatever I want, and you get to do whatever you want. Doyle, giggling, made one last attempt. That just seems so individualistic and mean. Ultimately, she apologized. The women proffered their undying love. Wambach posted the video on Instagram where it was enjoyed by 484,000 people. So bizarre. Why are we doing this? Why are people like this? Stop sharing this on social media. I think this is my goal in life. Keep these sacred interactions off the internet. I find them to be something that as people we should not like. I don't know. I just think private moments should remain private because I can't trust anything. Like once the camera is recording, it's no longer real to me. Doyle said that they shared the video as a kind of teachable moment. Okay. Like Gloria Steinem, another feminist whose beauty made her message of liberation from the patriarchy's aesthetic more appealing to women who still wanted to embody it. Doyle has struggled persistently with eating. In my weird times, a lot of my thoughts are about what should I eat? What shouldn't I? Is that too much? How much am I working out? She said. Everything in me intellectually knows what a freaking opportunity cost it is. The things that I could do with that energy in that brain space, it's like the one program I can't get out of my floppy disk. Until recently, Doyle dutifully dyed and straightened her long blonde hair and cultivated the plastic glamour of Disney princess. Pointing at her chin-length, naturally curly hair, she said, even this is a big deal for me. She has given up Botox and sometimes goes on camera without makeup. Oh, no, I mean, yeah, I think that's good. I do that, obviously, if you couldn't tell based on my face. But again, like, I don't know. It's like, do I deserve $1 million for not wearing makeup? I would love it. I would love some $1 million, but I don't know. It just seems like, okay, like you made a choice. Great. But whatever. When someone says to me, you're pretty, the only thing that means to me, our culture has a list of things that deems people attractive, and you are really good at kicking your own ass to match those standards. Congratulations, she said. It's the same way people will say, there's no way you can have an eating disorder. Look how thin you are. Like, why do you think I'm so thin? Huh? That doesn't make sense. Because I have a raging eating disorder, you freaking asshole. She shook her head. I would not at all be surprised if I'm this 90-year-old badass woman who's done a lot of good things and is still like, I'll just have a quarter of a cookie. Doyle has always thought of herself as a feminist, but she's not sure it's a club that wants her for a member. I think feminism has a hard time of being inclusive of a lot of things that I am. My femme presentation, my high-pitched voice. Doyle fired an agent who insisted that she speak lower and slower in interviews. She kept saying, no one's going to take you seriously. Doyle recorded the audio version of Untamed, and it became one of the year's most downloaded audiobooks. It's not just hardcore feminists who I feel are begrudgingly allowing me a seat at the table, she continued. Same thing with LGBTQ activists. I'm not gay enough for the gay community. Doyle has got blowback for refusing to reframe her story as a life spent in the closet. Also, you know who else won't let me at any tables? Christians. The writer Jen Pollock Michael argued in Christianity Today that Doyle sermonizes that God's love is boundless and that her choices need no bounds. Real Christianity, Michael wrote, does not entail abandoning the discomfort of God's revealed truth for self-soothing versions that placate the conscious and tickle our fancy. All right. Doyle, despite her large following, often feels displaced. I'm not used to belonging, she told me. Even her neighborhood in Florida seems inhospitable these days. Her house, which abuts a canal leading to the Gulf of Mexico, is one of just a few things without a Trump sign. We look out our backyard and there's boat after boat with Trump flags, Doyle said. It's not conservative. It's like we live inside a rally. We have good surface conversations at soccer, Wambach said, coming into the kitchen one evening. We love their kids and they love ours, but I think that by necessity, it's forced us to just kind of keep to ourselves. They were getting ready for an early dinner before soccer practice. Both daughters, Ama and Tish, play, but nobody loves soccer more than Craig, Doyle said, including this one, she added, pointing to Wambach. He's a lover, Wambach agreed. I was just good at it. Wambach, Doyle, and Craig Melton are good friends who parent like a braid, Doyle likes to say. The three of them and their children recently decided to move to Los Angeles. The move is partly to do with work. Wambach and Doyle are investors in the Angel City Football Club, a newly established team in the National Women's Soccer League, and Doyle is collaborating on a script for a television series based on Untamed, which is being developed by J.J. Abrams' production company. And she's going to be played by Sarah Paulson. That's the update that I don't think came out yet in this part. And she's like, that's the only person I want to play me is Sarah Paulson. And I guess Sarah Paulson agreed to do it. Perhaps most of all, they are tired of being so isolated. Asked what she wouldn't miss about Naples, Tish, who was 14, said immediately, the Republicans. Doyle, who was wearing peach pants and a white tank top, led the family in a rendition of The Lord is Good to Me, and then distributed burgers, veggie for Chase and regular for everyone else. She asked, what is the single thing that is not a person that you will miss? What is the single thing that is not a person that you will miss about Naples? Do they have smoothies in California? Ama asked her. Doyle told her they definitely did. Quote, I don't even think they have solid food. In Los Angeles, Doyle may finally find that she belongs. Her friend Chelsea Handler, the comedian, told me, all my friends in Hollywood read Love Warrior and Untamed. This time, everyone knew about her. In June, Wambach and Doyle were looking at houses in the LA suburbs, and for the first time, Doyle encountered untamed in the wild, as she put it. We were waiting for the realtor on this tiny, precious, tree-covered street, she recalled, and this woman walks out of her house and says, are you Glennon? Are you Rachel? Hold on. Are you Rachel? Are you Rachel? Are you Glennon? I'm literally sitting on my front porch finishing Untamed right now, and I looked up and you're standing in the middle of my street. Doyle grinned and said, I said, yes, I come to everybody's house. I'm just here in case you want to talk about anything. That's funny. Okay. There you go, everybody. That is the very complete history of Glennon Doyle. I think that was a very well put together article. It did fill in a lot of gaps. However, the one thing I'm still lacking is how she went from why she thinks, and maybe she doesn't have to share this. Maybe it's me being, because she's like, I've shared everything with everyone. I'm like, well, what do you think caused the trauma? Like, what was the trauma that caused the eating disorder and like the alcoholism and all that? Was it something more than just like, just typical life in suburbia, or was there something else that we're not understanding or missing? And that was one thing. And then like her mom, they never talked about her mom. Where's the mom? Other than like they talked to the dad, who said the funny thing about the funeral. But yeah, like I wonder if there's something missing there. And she's talked about her mom before. She's like shared photos and stuff. I think I have a list or a little link. So she doesn't like have a bad relationship with her mom, so it seems, but I wonder like if something happened. This is what she says about her mom. To my mama, who taught me the most important thing. Here she is. There's Glennon. That's a lot to read. But sorry, I'm like flipping through quickly just to see the pictures. Well done, Mom. The story you wrote is my favorite of all time. A better story simply doesn't exist. Happy Heroes Day, Mama. I guess I'll have to read this and see. But I always I have my own, projections on how a bad relationship with your mother can lead to acting out and anxiety and a lifelong fight for, stability. And I don't have that like crazy of a story. And I didn't have that severe of symptoms for that long of a time. So I'm just curious, just for my own interest. But anyways, okay, we learned a lot. I think overall, again, on the spectrum of, Dean Graziosi, Teal Swan, I don't know. Rachel Hollis probably is a little bit less than those two, but, problematic, people who rub me the wrong way, MLM distributors who are claiming to be life coaches, spiritual, manifestation coaches who are trying to rip you off. Those are at the high end of like scammer, bad, I don't like their whole entire message spectrum. I think Glennon is definitely at the bottom end. I like that she takes a political stance. I think that shows bravery. Whether you agree with the stance or not, I think it still shows that she's not like this safe, I'm not gonna, be on. I'm gonna tell you I'm being honest, but I'm gonna, hide things that people might not like about me. So I appreciate that, and I'm impressed by that. I like that she's got the nonprofit. That seems like it's legit. I like that she didn't wait to post the book or whatever, publish the book before she announced her divorce. I think that's kind of like cool. I don't know if it's a good business decision or whatever, but I guess it turned out fine. The things I don't like are that I think there's missing pieces perhaps of the story. I think I would like to hear more about the help that she's got along the way. She talks about AA, but she sort of says like, I stopped going, and I just would like a little bit more details. And maybe she talks about that in the books more. And I think she should stop pushing like the narrative of she has a life experience, and then she's like, all women do this, all of us do this. Do you know how we all experience capes and cages and this and that? Like, I think a little less generalizing, humanity's experience on Earth with her own lived experience would do her better. I'm also interested to see how her relationship with Abby plays out longer term, just because I think their love story, they're like the way that they started is sort of weird and sort of, it's not the greatest basis of a long-lasting marriage and relationship. But then again, they've been together for a while. They got married in 2017 and they're still together today. So they must be getting along enough. We didn't even get to talk about who the mystery guest is. Let's do another Glennon Doyle stream at some point, and maybe we can even do it sooner than later and continue where we picked up. And let me know. Actually, I don't know. Don't let me know. I want to be cool, and I need to do a video. I'm thinking about doing a video about all the things that I've changed on since I started my channel, and go back on my old videos and be like, okay, I no longer believe in this. What I said here, I was wrong. And like sort of update everybody about how I'm feeling, because lately, I gotta be honest, like I sort of at the top addressed some of it, but like reading the comments has gotten into my head and has made me discouraged into posting new content. And as many positive comments as I get, and I appreciate all of them, and I appreciate people who show up to the streams and watch them, it still is hard to read all the comments and not be affected and not be confused too about like what am I supposed to do now? Like I read a comment that's like, I love this video. And then I read the next comment. It's like, this was the worst video. I'm like, should I keep doing it? Should I not keep doing it? I don't know. Like, I don't want to offend people, but I don't want to like, I don't know, keep doing something that's hurting, but I don't want to change it just because one person said something. So before, when I started and I was, covering things, I was like, I want to know everything that you guys think. I want to know, because I can handle it. And I can to a point, but I think it's starting to get in my head and make me nervous. And like, I don't want to it's not that I want to offend as much as I don't want to say something I don't even mean and then have it recorded. And I don't know. But then at the same time, it's like, I'm no better than the people I'm kind of insulting or critiquing. So I need to be able to have critique. I just need to be better about when I read it, being open and on it, like open to the criticism and having a stronger sense of self, because just lately I've just been like, I don't know, like maybe I should cut back or, take a break. And I don't want to. I don't want to, but I don't want to create a echo chamber, and I don't want to create a place where only haters are allowed. Like, I want it to be both and all. And let's be critical, but let's also be honest. Like, let's not just shit on someone because, you know, it's fun. It is fun to do, but not everyone deserves it. So it's on me to fix it, and I will fix it, and I'll keep being here. But just to keep everyone, you know, up to date, those are my thoughts. And I think the video of going back and like revisiting some of the things I've said in the past, I had kind of strong convictions, or so I thought, and I've like changed. So it's important to update everybody, especially people coming in watching old videos and old, like 2 years ago videos, which is not that long ago. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much to everyone who joined this stream. Sorry that we got blocked by TEDx for several minutes, but we're back. Seems like we're back. And yeah, and maybe I'll give it a read. Maybe I'll give Glennon Doyle another read. I have it still on my Audible. I'll give Untamed another listen to with my new evolved brain, and then I will be pursuing my same-sex relationship shortly after. I'm just kidding. Just joking, but you never know. Okay. Thank you, everybody. If you would like to join the membership, that is still available. It's available and it's below. And I'm going to sing an 80s version of our Pancake Breakfast Club members right after this. Well, not after this, at the end of me talking. And if you would like to see your name and have that sung at the end of live streams, you can do that. You can definitely do that. And it's just a link in the link in the description below. And yeah, thank you. And I'll be back soon. And if you want to watch Cringefluencers tomorrow, that'll also be on the Cringefluencers channel tomorrow. What time, you ask? I don't know. Cam has not texted me back yet, so we're figuring that out. So here we go to 80s Pancake Breakfast Club. And also, just this is, maybe you guys decided that you don't want to do the membership anymore, and also no harm, no foul. But every month, if you didn't do like the auto renew, it'll take you off. So just in case you don't see your name and you think you should, it might have auto taken it off. And I took your name off just because I didn't know if you no longer support anymore. So it's not personal. I just go by the list, but right before the show, I just check the list to see. So if you're offended, sorry. Okay, goodbye. And I will see you in 1 second with my voice only. Peace. Sorry. That was super loud. Super, super loud. That's good, right? Rainy Cannon reminds me of Steve Bannon, but better looking and less insane. Starry nights, you bring light to my life, and you also are on the stream to watch me and interact with others. Nicole Hensley, you are so trendy, you always have the latest styles on. And Young, you're the best song I've never sung, but I'll sing this song for you, yeah, yeah. Just like Nicole Campbell, she doesn't like to gamble, because I used that rhyme the last time. Hey, Clueless Monet, she rolls in the hay after a long day in the barn, yeah. Laura Wallace forgot her wallet at the grocery store. You better go pick it up before they close it and throw it in the trash. Oh yeah. Angela Arnold. She's out there trying to find caramel corn. It's probably gone because now we're into Christmas food. Good luck there, Angela. I have faith in you. Oh, Kimberly's on the stars for some reason. We'll move her down. The perception trainer. She likes to train and be the no-brainer person on her trivia team. She knows all the answers. Marley Hanno. She doesn't like to stand on the fan. Oh, she doesn't like it blowing in her face. I feel you, girl. A console. Speaking of you, you're a console. You like to play on the PlayStation console. This one you've told me. Brian and Nicole. You go down lots of rabbit holes. You like self-help investigations. Thanks for being here. Chels Marie. You're never dirty. You like to shower every single day. That's pretty cool to me. Alaska Blue Tundra. You're lots of fun, bruh. And you like to get all cozy when it's cold. Probably in Alaska. Dave Kelly. He likes jelly and peanut butter sandwiches before he goes to bed every night. Crystal G. She likes to sail the sea, just like Dave Hawley. And Louise V. Doesn't like bees, but does like the honey they make. Dahlia. She got 10 dahlias, 'cause she's Dahlia the 5th. And she's got 5 cousins named Dahlia too. Stella Black. Don't fight back. Not that you would. Just fight forward. Kimberly Cassay. You've made my entire day by being here and watching the show and participating. And Soko Lashes. She likes those bashes. The birthday party ones with the box cake. Alice in Wonderland. 66, man. She's going down to find the white rabbit 66 times. And the final song, Kimberly Harris Smiles. This song produced by Kimberly Harris Smiles. Boom, 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 boom. Thank you, everybody. See you soon. Goodbye.